All right, good evening, everybody. I would like to call to order the October 18th, 2023 Franklin Township Board of Supervisors meeting at 7 p.m. In attendance for myself, Chairman David Gerstenhaber, Vice Chair Donna D, and Supervisors Johnson and Torres. Also in attendance are Township Solicitor Guy Donatelli, Andrew Tulea of Arrow Consultants, Township Operations Manager Jeff Eastburn, Township Controller and Office Manager Melissa Ortega, and Township Secretary Stacy Hollis. And there are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 members of the public in attendance. So please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, thank you. So now I'd like to open the floor to public comments. Public comment may include any comments relating to tonight's agenda items. Commenters must state their names, whether they are a resident of the township or a non-resident taxpayer in the township. If you do not identify yourself, your comments will not be included in the official minutes. Do we have any public comment before we start the meeting? And actually, I see Don Dowling has joined us remotely. So we also have Township Supervisor Don Dowling in attendance.
Want to go next?
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to go for the approval of the minutes. So I make a motion that the board approve the September 27, 2023 Board of Supervisor meeting minutes. Could I have a second for that? All right, thanks, Jim. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Dawn, are you okay? Dawn, I'm gonna go 5-0.
She's still connecting, so she
Okay,
might have.
all right, so I'll go 4-0 then.
Okay.
So I'd like to announce Melissa Ortega for the September's Treasurer's Report.
The September 2023 Treasurer's Report includes the following disbursements. The general fund with disbursements and transfers of $137,923.64. The Park and Recreation Fund with disbursements of $8,926.11. The Open Space Fund with disbursements of $5,608.46. The Capital Reserve Fund with disbursements of $6,224.47. The Emergency Services Fund with disbursements of $58,245.01. The Fire Hydrant Fund with disbursements of $580.80, leaving a balance in all funds totaling $2,245,013.83.
Okay, I make a motion that the approve the September 2023 Treasury Report as presented by Melissa Ortega. Could I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Stefan. Any discussion? No? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries, I think 5-0. Dawn, are you on now?
Yes, she's having a hard time.
All right, we'll go 4-0
Can we
again.
unmute her?
I'm having a real hard time with my phone.
Oh, Dawn, you're back. Now she's back on mute. No, okay. All right. Zoning officers report. This report is compiled by the zoning officer and includes the number of permits processed for the month of September. In the month of September 2023, 6 permits were issued, $3,279.14 in permit
Who's
fees.
talking?
0 miscellaneous fees, 0 recreation.
Just to let you know, our zoning officer is on this evening, Mark Gordon. So Mark, get prepared.
I would, Supervisor Torres, I would recommend if we're going to have a conversation with respect to that matter, that, and you're going to solicit my advice, I believe we should preserve the confidences involved and perhaps should do that at an executive session. However, I can say, based upon our review of the file as of today, that there was a successful hearing in front of the magistrate judge, Judge Seavey, that he found in favor of the township in every respect for everything we requested monetarily. That 2 days ago, the 30-day period to appeal that ran, and we'll be taking action to preserve the rights of the township, to make sure that that judgment is recorded properly. I don't need any authority to do that. I'm going to do that as your counsel and counsel in that case. I will say that my information is that the goats are back, and my colleague Ms. Reinstatter and I are putting together a document which will elevate the matter to another court with additional relief that's non-monetary. That when I have that product completed, I'll send it to Mr. Eastburn and he'll distribute it to the board so you can see what we're proposing. And that I will say we kept our word. I gave our word, the board's word to the judge, that we would lay off for a bit and give the property owners an opportunity to come into compliance. They have not. As a matter of fact, they did, at least one of them did exactly the opposite. And so we'll be proceeding in that fashion. I'm happy to participate. If you want to ask questions and get additional answers, I'm happy to participate in an executive session on that.
Before we go, I think an executive session might be warranted, but can we talk a little bit about when people are in violation of these kinds of zoning, what levers the township have to employ?
Sure. Generally speaking, and generally speaking, violations like this will result in an NOV, a notice of violation, by your code enforcement officer. Those will proceed to a hearing under the particular ordinance section violated. There will be a penalty provision. We will appear before the magistrate. We will present our evidence and we'll get a monetary judgment. And we can enforce that monetary judgment in a couple of different ways. I have my own personal preference, and my personal preference is to take any magisterial district judge judgment, record it in the Prothonotary office in the county of Chester, and then it acts as a lien on any real estate involved. So I think that's a very effective way to protect the township's ability to collect. I don't generally recommend sheriffing constituents' property on their front lawn. I normally don't advise that, because generally it's not as effective as taking a lien on a piece of real estate, and because there's value there, and it will preserve its priority. If the issue is an ongoing violation which causes a public nuisance, we can file a complaint in the Court of Common Pleas of Chester County and request for specific relief and money damages to abate the violation. And those are the two ways that I have. There may be one other that I'm neglecting, but those are the two ways that I have found effective in getting cooperation from property owners who are out of compliance.
Okay. So I guess the board supports me. We have a short exec session to discuss some of these issues. So we'll schedule that either maybe briefly after this meeting if we have time, or at some other future date. But I think I have some questions that are probably best asked there. Okay, thank you. Okay, so is that it for zonings? Yeah. So now I'd like to introduce Paul Overton. to discuss the park recreation open space report.
Sure, Dave, happy to do it. I'm
Thank you.
taking Andrea's place. Just a comment, Dave, I couldn't hear anything Stefan said when he introduced that last topic. I could see his mic was green, but like I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Paul,
But
can you
I
hear me
did
now?
hear-
Paul, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay, Jeff just fixed that. Thank you.
okay, yeah, so I could hear guys reply, but I had no idea what the topic was.
Oh,
So, all right, sounds like it's working now. So we had a meeting on the first Wednesday of October for the Pro Board. And the first topic was the White Clay Crescent Preserve. There was a complaint or a comment. I actually don't know who from. I think it was from the hunting group, that someone had marked some trails in there and they were wondering if someone was building trails or what was going on. So just to reassure you, nobody from the Pro Board was building any trails, and Mark Thompson, our trail friend in the biking club, was not building any trails. But what we did find out was the Wilmington Trail Club, who sometimes uses our preserves for hiking, didn't want to get lost in our preserve because there is no trail. So they left some red tape markers to find their way, and was planned to remove them on their return trip. I'm not clear if the return trip was the same day or the next week. Sometimes when they have big groups, they do 2 trips. So there's no alarm or anything to worry about with that trail marking. I think you guys discussed it at last month's meeting, Dave, but I wasn't there to hear it. So I'm just following up on a topic. I don't know if you had any other questions on that.
no,
Okay. And then in Bamshire Preserve, there was apparently a topic you all discussed last month about a trail clearing machine was mistyped as a tree clearing machine maybe, and it got people a little bit excited. Or, you know, this is not tree clearing. It was just a trail grading machine, not trail clearing. We're not building any trails. It's the same machine I've been talking about for over a year I wanted to borrow or rent and haven't been successful. So it's not a new plan, same old plan. Later on, I'll show you a picture of one and exactly what we're talking about there when I get into some more detail. As Donna asked me to do a little bit of a trail update on what's going on in the township. And then the next one, Crossin Park. We're going to put the stone mulch around the tubes in November. Betsy's going to lead that with her tractor. That's the key thing, is to have a tractor to do that work, to move the stone. And then we are continuing to work on the maps for Crossin Park, like a "You Are Here" map, to post at various locations around the park so people can better understand the trails. We've had a few people working on making the maps and try to make them a little bit more stylistic or artistic rather than just a satellite shot like we see in other parks around the area. I don't know if you guys have an example of it in your book or not. I actually have it on the screen. I don't know, should I share it or should I just move on?
yeah, so we have it in here in our books.
Okay. All right, and then
Hey, Paul, are you gonna? I see the map and all that. I saw it on the Pro, but I don't know where you're gonna. I know you're gonna put one at the trail. I mean, at the beginning of the park, but.
So yeah, the example one has that "You Are Here" at the restrooms. That would be the logical place for one. And then that one has some information. Let me just share it, I guess, Jim, so the public knows what we're talking about, right?
Okay.
Share screen. So is this what you're seeing here? This?
We're not seeing anything.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm a rookie.
There
Oh, you have it now.
it is. That looks good. Looks good.
All right, so the idea was there'd be two versions, this one by the bathrooms, and it gave a little more explanation, like Kyle threw in the healing gardens and the meadow area, and then explanation about the facilities, and there'll be a "you are here" thing. It's not on this version with the map, and then so while I'm on this map, Jim, that will be here by the bathrooms, and then another one wherever the trail entrances are. So probably three, like one down by the soccer field where you enter the trails, one by the lower pavilion, and maybe one by the dumpster where you go into Franklin. And the map at those locations, my suggestion is to have both Franklin and Crossin trails all on one page, and less of this stuff over here on the left showing what the facilities are. So as I said, we don't have a final version. We're just throwing out ideas, and we're putting out another version next month to review.
One of the things that just looking at this map as we develop this idea and decide what we're going to do here, the trails here as they're depicted aren't necessarily accurate anymore. I think so I'm sure you realize we'll probably this map is kind of defunct. We would have to replace it with where we want people to actually be. Because I think I'm not showing my screen, but there's a lot of these cross trails that look kind of like they're going straight down, east to west. Those aren't really being used anymore. I think we're discouraging all of these cross trails. And,
right.
And so it's really actually a lot less chopped up now than it was.
That's right.
So we want to make sure that we're clear on where we want people to be, and hopefully we're letting all those, high, steep, straight downhill trails to go back to nature.
We'll get them.
Yeah.
We'll make sure it's up to date. We do need we do need at least one of these steep trails because it's for truck access or tractor access to get down. But you're right, we don't want all of them, especially the ones that are eroding.
And I think the other thing we want to talk about before we finalize this project is once we get the trails labeled, right? So like I think there's a plan to at least just have some sort of labeling, like a blue trail, red loop, blue loop.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna
And to do that, we have an Eagle Scout who is interested in volunteering to do that. So we'll see what he comes up with.
Mhm.
He just proposed to us, I guess, in September.
Yeah. Okay, good. Good.
All right. Then let me get back to my agenda here. So one of the while I have this map up, one of the topics is getting a paved trail. I showed you this before, but just to follow with Donna's request for trail updates, you can see the gray is paved. And I told you before that people walk off the trail and walk the road back, and then they miss all this pavement, and that a connector across between these two would keep them on pavement and add a much larger loop for them to do their walk and keep them off the road. So that was a proposed project. We of course can't do anything without your approval, but I'm just showing you that's something we discussed and maybe something we could apply for a grant for. And the note is that I was going to show you guys that when the leaves are off the trees so we could look through the woods.
Sure.
Right. And then we talked about Goodwin. We have the oak trees in Goodwin are dying, or they look diseased rather. And so we had Tim Masters from Wild Things Plant and Healthcare come look at it. And he's suggesting to send a sample off to a lab. I also wrote to the Octorara Nursery from where we bought these trees 12 years ago. And he forwarded my photos to the state of Pennsylvania Ag Department and Penn State Extension, and they both gave an opinion of what they thought it would be. And their advice is to see what comes back in the spring, and if we identify what they think it is, which is a Skeletor caterpillar, they would know how to treat it then. So we'll look in the spring to see what comes back.
So I'm obviously not an arborist, and but looking at Goodwin Preserve, there was some issues with flooding, which I think has been resolved. It's kind of
That's
a wet
resolved.
area.
Yeah, that's
Is it
resolved.
okay? So is Goodwin Preserve? Is that a good place for those trees? I mean, is it just we
Yeah.
got unlucky? We just got unlucky with this caterpillar, or
Yeah, it's an infestation. Yeah, so there's 350 white oak trees that were
Okay.
planted. I don't know how many are left, probably 320. And I would say every one of them is showing the stress the leaves are eaten up from this caterpillar.
caterpillar?
So the tree is a swamp white oak, so it's meant for this sort of floodplain riparian buffer area. It's the right tree. It's
Okay,
just an insect.
it's just the insect.
Yeah.
So Paul, will the insect kill the tree, or it could kill the tree, or just eat the leaves?
If it eats the leaves often enough, it will kill the tree,
will kill
but
it.
they said it's rare. It's rare,
Okay.
but this is quite an extensive infestation. And then the risk is it'll then spread to the pin oaks, which is the other oak we have there at the preserve. So far, the pin oaks aren't affected. So sometimes it comes and goes. This is our second year with this infestation, at least the second year I noticed. It might have been longer. And if in the third year is just as bad, I'll have them come out and advise us what to do, if anything. So I just wanted to make you aware of it. The trees are sick. We're looking into it. I got some good help from the state and from Penn State. Thanks to the Octavera Nursery. All right, and then new business. We talked about what goals we want to have for 2024, like what projects we want to do, what grants we want to apply for. We don't have a list, but that's what we discussed. We need to put that together to have a goal for next year.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that, we've talked about, at least the board has talked about, and this would be a good time to do it, is have the pro come with 3 or 4 projects and that you would like to work on, and give the board an opportunity to say, yeah, we love these 3, this 4th one, let's sit on that and focus on, and to kind of really make sure that the board and the pro are in alignment and we can make some progress on some of these projects. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think we mentioned last time there was 2 residents that were contacted Township about preserving their properties, and so we're making contacts with them. But nothing's happened yet. Nothing's come of it. How's that? I should say it better. Then there's 2 grants that have been that we talked about, the PICO and watershed grants. And we were discussing what projects might be applicable to that, but we haven't come up with anything. Maybe that cross path I was talking about would be one. And then we also mentioned to the Windermere, Andrea contacted the Windermere HOA. They had been interested in planting trees in their open space. And so we mentioned that this grant, the watershed grant, would buy the trees for them. So she passed that information on to them. That wouldn't be anything to do with the township. That would be up to the HOA to do that.
can we get MS4 credits for that?
I don't know.
We need
I
them.
was thinking the same thing.
We need them.
What are the requirements for the watershed grant? Maybe you can provide that next meeting or some other time.
The requirements are that you have to provide the labor to plant the trees, and they'll provide the trees, and you have to provide a maintenance plan, and that the land that they're planted on has to be preserved. So somebody can't put these in their backyard if it's not preserved. It has to be preserved property.
Is it only trees, Paul?
Excuse me?
Is it only trees that they would provide, or is there some other something else that they would provide for the grant? Or is it grant money that we were buying trees with, or is it grant money that we can do anything we want with?
I believe it's the trees, but I don't remember. There's multiple grants, right? There's PICO and there's the watershed grant, there's Tree Vitalize, there's a lot going on. And right now, tree planting is hot, Jim. So if you wanted trees, I guarantee there's a grant out there that could buy them for you. But we, as a pro board, feel like we've done a lot of plantings lately and we need to focus on maintenance because, you know, it's all fun to plant them, but if you don't maintain them, you're going to lose them. So, you know, I personally spend a lot of hours out there on tree tubes and pulling vines and mowing and weed whacking. And, you know, I don't want to take on any more tree planting. So that's just Paul talking. That's not the pro board.
Right, understood.
But yeah, if you have something in mind on a preserved land, whether it's public or private, there's probably a grant out there for you.
Okay.
All right. The Chester County Conservation District contacted the township and they'd like to make a presentation to us. So we're going to arrange for that to come, have them come out and we'll let you all know when that is in case you want to join.
Great.
So some of the future projects we talked about on the pro is some signage for the Healing Gardens for Mr. Sachs Meadow. That's in Crossan Park. And then the Bluebird Trail, where there's some bluebird boxes along that meadow. Signs should be created for that to inform the public of what that's about. And then revitalizing the playground. The FSA has been doing some painting in there. And we talked about adding some equipment in there. That's all we did on that, discuss that. And then another one I'll talk about later is we have the Holmesy property we preserved 2 years ago, and we have a trail right of way, but we've never cleared the trail. So that would be a good project for volunteers, is to clear that trail. It's a very short trail, but a good one.
Does that connect to something? Where does that go?
It would connect to New Garden Township Trail. And,
Okay.
Very loud.
and so we do need a connector in there, Dave. So I'd like to talk about that at another time, though.
Sure.
And then reach out to the Boy Scouts for projects. So, you know, we had a list of projects for the Boy Scouts, and it's kind of dwindled down. But if you all think of any projects for the Boy Scouts, you know, let's get them on a list so we can be ready when they come out. All right, and that's it. So I'd like to give a trail update. Can I do that?
Let me just make a comment. So I did ask Paul at the last pro meeting, or I asked the pro, and Paul was elected to do this, just to give us an update on trails. I know this is something that the board's been interested in. What's the plan? I think this would be a good first discussion, but we want to agree on some kind of strategy, right? So I thought Paul could come and talk about how the pro is viewing trails, and I think that will begin the conversation with us.
Sure.
All right, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, so I wasn't at your last meeting, and unfortunately, and I didn't watch the video, but I guess there was some discussion about, you know, what's this machine for, and what's going on in White Clay Crescent and with the red, and you know, there was maybe some anxiety built up over that. So we would just give an update on what is going on with trail. So I put together a little PowerPoint here. I don't know what will happen if I go into PowerPoint view, so I'm just going to move it over. But the first thing we do every week, we have somebody out there doing something on a trail, right? Just personally, I was out there just on Saturday doing trails. And we have a guy that mows in Banffshire. We have the township doing the Gagan Trail, people who volunteer on the Keene Trail. You know, most people do the trail that's close to them. So we have lots of volunteers always going on. Mowing, and when I say mowing, that's ground level, and then trimming, meaning high level trimming, you know, because the weeds grow in from the sides. Removing fallen trees, like you see in the pictures here. This was a tree in Banffshire. This is what it looked like across the trails obscured. And then you can see Bill's cleaning up the trail. And then afterward, you can see it's all done and the trail is nice and clear. I mean, that happens probably every other week. You know, it's not always this big. Sometimes it's just a single log falls across the trail or a branch or something, but we're always cleaning up. And then 2 weeks ago, I repaired 2 boards on the oldest bridge we have. They were rotted, so I replaced them. And then regrading a few sections. So I'll talk about that in a second. But Donna had mentioned about, we have a lot of this going on and we need board permission. So we wanted to make clear for the last, since we've had trails for 10 years, me and the volunteers go out and we just take care of it. And I think the guideline is, as long as the volunteers have signed their waiver and as long as it doesn't cost the township any money, we can do our maintenance projects. And we all understand that any new trails or new things would require your approval. But is it still okay that we go do weekly maintenance?
Yes, I think the general feeling is as long as you're doing maintenance, right? So what you're doing here, hey, there's a log across the trail. That's an appropriate activity, right? It's something that we would do anyway, right? I think the question is, are you creating something new, right? Or are you doing a major change to the trail system, right? So it's, clearing out trails and doing maintenance of things that already exist. That is certainly within your purview. And as you point out, it's volunteer work. So that's maintenance. The difference is, are you creating something new or are you, changing the nature of the trail itself? Right. So and so creating something new. So I think where we became interested in what was going on with the trail system was with the crescent, the White Lake Crescent piece, where we said, well, what the heck's going on? Now there's a cleared trail and there's ribbons on the trees and what's going on. And so I think we wanted to just make sure, okay, well, what is happening in the township? If there are new things being created. So I mean, is that clear as far as where and the board, I think you kind of understand what we're saying. Do you agree with that? Okay.
I agree. And I think it was just coincidental timing that Matt had came to you and asked, or came to the pro board and said, how about White Clay Crescent? And we said, let's take a look. We'll go out and do a walk. And that's as far as we got, right? That's as far, we never even went out for a walk. And then just coincidentally, a week or 2 weeks later, the Wilmington Trail Club hung some ribbons, and they don't do trail clearing. They don't do any of that. And so, I understand if 12 people walk through, they made it look like there's a trail there, but no one was building a trail. So that's resolved. And, we come to you when we need to do something like build a trail or change things, or Matt Thompson comes to you, things like that. So we understand that. Nothing we have done is extended or built new trails. So now I haven't talked about this, regrade a few sections. So I keep using that term, and I think I realize that there's some confusion what that means. So I just want to take a second to say regrading. So this is an example of a trail that's running down slope, and water channels down that and you get erosion. It's a terrible design. And we have a few trails like that were old farm roads that we just adapted as a trail, right? Wasn't much choice. But any new trails we build properly across slope, and they're pitched so the water sheds off them and doesn't run down them. And you can see in this blow up here, let me make it a little bigger, that you cut the trail into the side of the hill, but still leave a little bit of a slope. People can't walk across a steep slope, right? That's not a comfortable trail. So you cut the trail in, and to do that, you can do it by hand with a pickaxe, or you can use a little machine to do that. So in most of our preserves, we used a little machine to do that. And that machine was given to us free from the Delaware Trail Spinners. Unfortunately, the guy that was doing it's gone. And so I'm trying to establish a new connection with them or rent the machine. Here you can see a cross section of the slice slope here. So in Banffshire, where we have these cuts like this in the steepest places, you don't do it everywhere, where it's flat, you don't bother, but where it's steep and you're going across the slope, we did this in a few spots. We had a large tree come down, and the tree was just here below the trail. So when the tree came down, it took away the whole trail. It's just a big pit. So it's very difficult to walk through. It's not safe, meaning it's slippery and steep. So I've been saying for a long time, I just want to regrade that section where the tree fell out. And then in a few other sections, the slope has fallen away, where the dirt has filled in and the slope has fallen away. Maybe people walk on the edge too much, or for whatever reason, We just need to clean it up and regrade it with that machine. We're not changing anything. We're just refreshing the trail. So that's what regrading means. And the machine that does that is a little Ditch Witch. This is a Ditch Witch. This is a Ditch Witch SK800. And you can see here, we used one to build the bridge. This is the bridge at Banffshire. And here it has an adapter for an auger driver. It's just a hydraulic head that the arms lift up and drive the auger in, which was the foundation for our bridge. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. So you can see the auger in front of that guy there. So it's the same machine, but with a blade on the front. And with the blade, you can cut the dirt. What's unique about this blade is it can tilt sideways. That's the hardest thing to rent. Not many can do that, but you tilt it sideways. So when you're running along the trail, you can tilt the blade and dig out the steep part of the hill. So when the ground used to look like this, you can cut into the side of the hill and make a trail. And this is about 2 to 3 feet wide. The machine is about 30 to 36 inches wide, depending what bucket you get. So that's what I mean by regrading the trail. And this is the machine. It's $300 or $400 for the weekend to rent it. I just can't find a good place to rent it from, or any place to rent it from. And as I've said several times in the last year, Delaware Trail Spinners now has one, and I'm trying to get them to lend it to us or rent it to us or whatever. And by the way, they're not called Delaware Trail Spinners anyway. They're just called Trail Spinners. Sorry.
Hey, Paul, how much of the trail are you talking about? Are you talking about a couple hundred feet? Or are you talking about?
Yeah. No, I'd say 100 feet. Like not a lot. Like I told them I need their machine for 1 weekend. So I'm thinking, 4 or 5 hours a day for 2 days. So it's not a big deal. I didn't want to make it a big deal. If I had gotten the machine 6 months ago, it'd be done, but that's what regrading is, what I mean by regrading. And if anyone wants to walk with me, I'd love to go show you where I'm talking about, where you walk the trail and you'll say, oh yeah, this isn't right. We need to fix this.
Sure.
I think that would be great, Paul, if we could walk it. But the other thing is this, I know you've been talking about it for a while. Is this something that we could get some service projects in and get some people to do it by hand? I mean, it would be free and it doesn't sound like a big deal. Maybe we could do it manually.
Yeah, this machine can do in an hour what it would take about 20 guys to do in 1 hour. Literally 20 men working with a pickaxe nonstop. So, I did several with a pickaxe and no more. That's not really feasible, Jim. But if you want to throw some guys on it, I can show them where you can start, and we'll see what they can do. But
I'm trying to connect the dots where it doesn't seem like it's a lot of work, but then it does seem like a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, especially when you get into roots and rocks.
Well, I like the idea of let's just walk it. So, because I'm having a hard time, I just like to see what we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, set something up.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Paul, can we do both? I mean, I know we want to do a walk in Crossing Park and do both at the same time. I know
Well,
it's
they're two different parks, but this one we can walk any day tomorrow.
Oh, we don't have to wait. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, we don't have to wait. Yeah,
Hey, Paul, can you set something up as far as the time?
sure.
Yeah.
What do you guys like? It's getting dark in the evenings, but I could go from, I guess it's 6:30, 6:40, it's dark. So I could go from 5 to 6:30.
Friday afternoons usually are best for me.
All right. Yeah, let's do Friday afternoon.
Okay.
I don't know if I have everyone's email, but I'll get it from Jeff if I don't.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But that's good. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it.
Yep. Okay, and then, and back to Dave, how much is it? What I figure is you rent the machine for a weekend or you borrow it for a weekend and you do everything you can in that weekend. You know what I mean? Like you might not get all your projects done, but you get the important ones done. You do the best you can.
Yep.
All right. Future projects regarding trails. So down at the wet end of Crossing Park, which is the north end, where the boardwalk washed out. You know, we had a Boy Scout boardwalk down there and it washed out twice. So most of those trails need to be abandoned down there. And we just need to do a little reroute, maybe put some millings in to raise up a small section so that when you walk down to the bridge, it's not a dead end. It'll make a small loop back to one of the good trails. So that's what I mean by repair and reroute the trails at the wet end. So that's one project. I think I've showed Dave that maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, and I'm wondering what you mean by routing them back. Why not just abandon it and just not have anybody back there at all? Other than, you know, you walk under that stone bridge and it's just a route. It's just a route to get you to Paradox. You know, maybe you can show me what you're talking about, because that whole back area is just a swamp. Basically.
So I can use this if you don't mind, if you can see this.
Sure.
So the existing trail goes all the way down here. It goes. This is the bridge, right? It follows the creek and goes all the way here to where the second bridge was supposed to be. And then it comes up to here. Yeah. All that, as you can see, is abandoned. We took it off the map. Yeah. And then this is what I'm talking about. This trail is on the old roadbed. It's not a trail now, but the roadbed is there. It's high and dry and straight. All we have to do is clear some sticker bushes, right? Very easy to do. And so this is the section I'm talking about to make it so there's some loop or some way to connect so you're not at a dead end. It's a very small little tail. This land here isn't anywhere near as bad as this stuff down here.
Yes, that's right.
So that, and then here, from the road to here, this is very wet in here. This is existing and it's very wet. I don't want to abandon it because then we have no connector. But if we have about 100 feet of millings, it would clean that up where you could walk on it in the wet areas, in the wet season. I mean,
yeah, I guess I was thinking about kind of simplifying that a little bit, because
but
we'll talk about it. But I look at it,
another walk.
Yeah, because I was thinking about, all those wet areas. We don't leave them alone. We don't use them, and then have a much simpler, trail system in here.
All this down here is abandoned, Dave. They're not showing all this.
No, I know. I'm talking about like that whole that right area where you just said it's still wet. Like down there, it is pretty wet, right? I think that goes into. We were talking about was it London Britain over there?
Yeah.
There was going to be a London Britain connector in there, but when we walked there was mud and muck. Why not just get rid of that
about
whole
100 feet right here? That's mud and muck.
Yeah, let's just get rid of the whole thing. And just have a loop that's, and open that up, and then have a loop where it's dry and nice.
So this is dry and nice, and it goes all the way across.
Yeah.
I just need to connect to it. And this is that steep one that's an original trail we want to stop using.
Yeah. So we can talk about it. I mean, I think we might have a little bit of a difference of opinion, but we can talk about it some other time.
Okay. Well, that's the idea, is to go down there and address the end, because right now there's signs pointing people to trails that aren't usable.
Yeah.
Right. And we already talked about the Holmesy property needs to be cleared. And then this has been a pet peeve of mine for a long time. The Gagan Trail that goes around the old Ford farm has a connector that goes to Crossin Court Street. And there's no markings, so people don't know that it's there. And a simple little sign, 6" by 6" that says trail entrance or something, would be a really nice little note to let people know they can walk onto Gagan Trail from Crossin Court. It's already there. It's mowed grass. You just need a little 6" sign. All right. Oops. So then new trails. So that's all just kind of maintenance stuff, right? So then new trails is Matt Thompson talked to you all a while back, and Pico, about doing trails on the Pico property. So it's not actually a Franklin trail. I would just thought I'd mention it because it's in our township and you all knew about it.
I think that hit a snag, didn't it?
It did. With Matt Thompson and I met with Ron Reagan out there, and Ron seems to believe right now we would need a lot of expensive permits to go through the Pico ground. And Pico is willing for us to do that and pay for it all if we want, but they're
Yeah,
not going to do
it's
that.
probably not gonna, all right, well, we need to talk about that.
Yeah, well, it's a project.
Yeah.
And then Cross and Park access at North End, you just mentioned that's in London, Britain, so it's not really in the township, but I thought I'd mention it. And then paved trail connecting soccer field to the pavilion lot, I've already talked about that one too. And then single loop trail in White Clay Creek Preserve. So Matt Thompson came and asked about that last month or so. And then we already said that, some red tape was hung unrelated. I haven't even walked with Matt out there to do anything about it. So, but that's on the table.
Yeah.
And then the state is asking for participants in the Big Elk Park development. And, I've been a volunteer for that for several years, and it kind of fell to the wayside here, I guess, during the pandemic, but I just recently got an email, they're going to start it back up again. So I'm just letting you know that I'm volunteering as a township representative to look at the Big Elk. That's not the right name. It's the Big Elk Creek State Park or something like that. Big Elk section or something. Okay, so that's not on township property, but it's in the township. Okay, any comments on that before I go to the next one? I don't want to use up your whole meeting.
Yeah, I do want to make a comment. So even this is great. I'm glad you have this out for future projects. And if you could send that, I don't know, Casey, if you already have a copy of that, but I'd like to get a copy of this. But we're not giving you permission tonight. So I think this is really good to scope it out and present it to lay out your vision. But I would think that we would want to talk about each one of these individually, even though you classify it as maintain, it is something that we would want to discuss before the pro move forward with it. That's my sense from the board, right? So I just want to, I'm glad that we did this. I think it's good to get an idea of your vision, but don't take this discussion as saying, yeah, go ahead. It's not what you're hearing yet.
Yeah, I understand, but I think you're afraid I'm going to go out in the middle of the night and build new trails, aren't you, Donna?
No, you have a lot of great ideas. I just think the board
Yeah.
has ideas too. So I think it's just one at a time, talk it through and
So-
we'll move forward.
So the only one that of course, everyone, Dave said, he doesn't agree on the reroute trails. We'd have to go out in the field and look at that. I understand that. But how about clearing the Holmesy Trail? I mean, it's an easement in place. We're just taking out some weeds. Do you guys want to go see that or give me permission, or what do you want to do for that? Because if one weekend I get a bunch of guys and say, let's go do it, and it's 3 more weeks before your next board meeting, is that necessary? Or can we clear that?
I guess my question is, I don't really know I'm not really sure what that trail is, right? So why would someone go to that trail? I was going to walk that trail. Does it go somewhere? Is it just a scenic, walk? I have no idea I guess what I would need, and maybe we walk it, I don't know, is just to get an idea of what that trail is. Cause I know the property for sure. I know the property. And I know that layout of the property was 10, 15 acres, something like that. 15 acres.
On a slant, it's not.
Yeah. So I'm wondering what the trail is and where it goes. So that's my only question is it just a straight trail from the road and it stops somewhere in the woods, or does it connect to something? That's sort of my thing, is like, what would be the function of the trail other than just saying, hey, we have a trail easement here, we should take advantage of it. Would it just be a trail that no one uses because it doesn't go anywhere or doesn't connect to something?
Yeah, and then if no one uses it, it's no harm to the township, right? You didn't pay anything to clear it, and then it would grow back in if nobody maintained it. But yes, we'll walk it and we'll check it out.
Okay.
All right. Just a comment on the trail plan, the big picture. This is from the county. There is a more up-to-date one. I don't have it, but you can see the county has kind of a big picture network of trails. the county came down and presented us this image and discussed with us, our part of hopefully making this vision happen. And at the time, we agreed with it as a board, and we're interested in doing that. And so I'll focus your attention down here in the Franklin Township corner of the world. And I blew up that corner here. And the idea, this is what we focused on when the county presented it to us. The idea was, this is White Clay Creek State Park down here at the Delaware Arc corner, and that the middle branch of the White Clay Creek, a trail would follow that generally up to West Grove. And you can see the West Grove Square right there. And then a connector over to Avondale, and then a trail would follow the Avondale east branch of the White Clay Creek down through New Garden, a little bit in Franklin, and to the White Clay Creek State Park. So it's kind of a triangle along the two creeks. And then over here on the Elk, which is now the Strawbridge property. So just so happens, while we were preserving land and having subdivisions built, we were able to link together big sections of this. And New Garden was able to link together big sections of this. And so this map, which is on the township, and by the way, this map is also on the township website somewhere. This map on the township website, you can see the dark colors are completed or easements are in place. The light colors, there is no easement. There's nothing in place. That's future. And here's the White Clay Creek State Park. So to get from White Clay Creek State Park all the way up to Goddard Park and the sidewalks of West Grove, we're very close to having a continuous trail. So it's very exciting. So White Clay Crescent plays a part of that. It's a small piece, but it's an important link. So over here on the top of the page is the East Branch that goes through New Garden, mostly down East Branch to the White Clay Creek Preserve. And they've done really well. There's some sections they added in here that I don't have on the map right by the Landenberg store. And then we have a connector going across through the Keene Trail and through Windermere. We're just missing one small piece here. So it's pretty exciting that we've got a lot of this plan in place, and it'll take another decade to complete. But once you have a plan and you work on it little by little, eventually you can get there.
Paul, this is a map that came out, so I appreciate the work that went into this. And the map that you showed from the county is, it's already obviously very vague. Are they participating in helping with some of these yellow areas, or is this saying, hey, folks, here's our vision, and if you want to participate,
Yeah,
about yourself?
the latter. It's the latter. Yeah, this is our plan, and they'll, if you ask for specific help, they'll help. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's up to us. Like when a certain farm or property comes up for development, it should be us that we have this plan in mind, and the planning commission says to the developer, you're required to provide a sidewalk or path, and we want it to go east-west so it connects instead of north-south or whatever. I'm making things up.
No,
But
I get it.
It's us having a big picture in mind. Otherwise, everyone builds a neighborhood, nothing connects to anything. Because eventually this township will be built out or preserved, or some of both, most likely. Okay, that was, I think that was the last thing I had. Oh, one more thing. There was a trail plan study. We paid Ray Ott to come in, do a study, and there's more specifics down here where he made some specific, studies of areas of the township. Let me get to one. Yeah, here's one where he looked at specific areas and said, here's a good corridor. Let's follow this, the old Pico high tension lines, let's follow that. Oh, that's the red one, I think. And it'll connect to Crossan Park. And here he's got the one going through Windermere and Keene before it was even built, and it came true. It doesn't follow that path exactly, but that's exactly what happened. So I think it's interesting to look through. This is also on the township website. Another example here, he's got more specifics along the White Clay Creek Middle Branch. So there is a plan, we paid someone to study it. We had 4 or 5 public meetings where the public came in. We had big maps on the table in the room you're sitting in now, and the public drew lines to say where the trail will be good, from Kimmelsville Elementary School over to here, from the park over to here. So we had public input, and then the Ray Ott agency tried to design them in. Here's one that ended up coming true, which was around the Ford Farm, the Gagan Trail. So I'm not going to keep going. I just want to show you, there's parts of things happening that were planned long ago.
Well, thanks,
All
Paul. I really appreciate you coming with the vision. I think you got the answer regarding the maintenance, so I think you should be happy with that to go back to the pro with, keep doing what you're doing in terms of keeping the trails clear. So that's all good. And
Okay.
and then we'll get together and take a walk.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. Good update. Do we have anything else we want to talk about with Paul? All right.
Public comment now till the end.
At the end, it will be, unless it's quick.
It's very quick. Mark's what I'm going to found. Yeah, my grandson and I were taking a walk in White Clay. The day after, I was at this meeting where they said nothing was going on there. And it's not 12 hikers getting lost in the woods. It's a 29-acre parcel. You don't need to leave markers. It actually followed that exact trail he just showed. It went from one end to the private property. And someone took a leaf blower or a rake to it. It wasn't just hikers hiking in the woods. Now, I don't know what they told them, but somebody went ahead and started making a trail. And it was disturbing to see, 50 pieces of red tape. I don't understand why these people use it. People have GPS markers. You can mark anything. You don't need to put red tape where the public has to see it. So that wasn't someone worried about getting lost. It's a 29-acre parcel. I mean, it's almost a joke. But so I don't know what it was, but it wasn't. They might have put it there, but it was for some other cause. That's where the trail's going to go. So, and it ends on private property. So, okay, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, well, there's no trail that's been agreed to by the board, so
Okay.
it's not coming.
Well,
from
I
there.
found them in February from the bike club. There were several. And I said something to Jeff, and then the next day they were covered up. So, it's
That was
something you
in
need to keep an
Franklin.
eye on.
Yeah,
That was in Franklin. That was in Franklin, but.
Yeah. I think we got that straightened out too.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Thank you. All right, so I think I'm next.
Yeah, Planning Commission. All right, thank you, Paul.
Yep.
All right, so we're gonna move on to the planning commission report. John, are you here? All right,
Hello,
there you are. Hi, John.
the PC met on October 5th. And we approved the January PC meeting minutes. So it's been a long time since we met, although we had an ad hoc meeting that we met a few times. And at the meeting, we reviewed the Frazee Gill preliminary subdivision plan. We had representatives from Hillcrest there on behalf of Heather and Joe Gill. We reviewed the Pannoni engineering comments. The reviews actually took about probably close to an hour. Anyways, we went through the Pannoni letter, the proposed stormwater management plan. There were a few comments made on that. Chuck Phillips made a few comments, and we're just going to make sure that some things are outlined pretty well to make sure water is flowing where we want it to flow. We reviewed the Chester County and the ACOM comment letters, and there was really nothing significant there. The sewage facilities were fine. We didn't see any issues there. So we basically agreed that we're splitting off the one parcel from the 18 acres was not going to create a problem. And we conditionally approved that, moved it forward to the Board of Supervisors. So the approval was passed on a 4-0 vote. And we don't see anything major there that won't be corrected in a few minor corrections. Have any questions about that? One thing that was interesting is there was a wet area there, and there was a bog turtle study that had to be done. Now, have you ever seen a bog turtle in this township? Probably not.
We wasted enough money looking for it, though.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing is, I know what they look like, but I've never seen a bog turtle in all my life. But boy, if you have one on your property, it can lead to some really expensive engineering. Is that right, Nate? So it's fortunately, in this case, the chances of having a bog turtle was very light, so that was not didn't require a full study. But there were a lot of studies from a lot of directions to approve this one lot subdivision. Let's see. So, if any questions on that, if not, I'll move forward. No.
So we're gonna, once you're done with the report, we're gonna vote. There's a proposed motion in front of us to allow this subdivision plan, right? Is that what this is?
Right.
The preliminary, final, minor, subdivision plan. So before we move on, there were some applicants. The applicant will have to satisfy some certain points here.
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the highlights here about, what we should be discussing? I see the sewage facility planning module needs to be completed or should be
Nate, do you want-
provided.
Nate, do you want to talk to those things? Because they're largely engineering issues.
You can jump in, John. No worries at all. I think John did, guys, Nate Klein with Pannoni. Good to see everybody. Thanks for having me on. John did a nice job, just kind of summarizing things pretty quickly here for us. Fairly straightforward, small subdivision, creating one new 1 acre lot. Hillcrest did a pretty good plan here. Again, there's some conditions here that we're throwing in this proposed motion to make sure everything gets squared away. And typically what would happen next is, assuming, the board would move forward, going forward, Jeff and myself would make sure that any of those conditions get resolved prior to the plans being recorded. So that would be kind of the last step. So really, I think probably the biggest highlights are, one is just addressing some of our stormwater concerns and some concerns that the planning commission had. Tom from Hillcrest was on the planning commission meeting, provided some sketches. So I think they're all very modest, minor concerns that we can get addressed. Sewage facilities planning module required for the on-lot sewage. Again, it's a little bit of just an administrative process that typically will follow after this type of approval. I believe that we had our comment in there about the traffic fee, somewhat limited, I think somewhere in the range of $600, give or take. A couple other minor things, but really nothing that jumps out as needing a ton of discussion, potentially problematic or major concern. So that's kind of my quick 2-minute summary, guys.
Yeah, we agreed with that. We didn't really see anything there that couldn't be dealt with at the engineering level. And we didn't really see a need to bring it back to the planning commission. And those are things that Nate and Jeff can deal with. So that was the reason for the conditional approval. We didn't see anything that was really glaring that was going to be a problem that wouldn't be corrected with some minor changes to the plan that was presented. Okay.
So, hey, Mark, in the motion, the subdivision, land development, stormwater management, and then general approval of some other items. Will this come back to this board, or will the other approvals have to do with the county for the septic and things like that?
So this is Nate speaking, but yeah, nothing would likely come back to the board unless we need a signature for the sewage facilities planning module. But otherwise, no, I would not expect anything else to get back in front of the board other than ultimately signing the record plans. And I'm not sure if just 1 or 2 members, how you guys typically do that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so this is our chance to say how do I need to read the whole thing?
That's a good question. Do you need to read all of this?
Can I just read the motion and not have to read the waivers, or do you want me?
Here's the way.
Okay, how do you want me to handle it? Go ahead.
So here's the way I would recommend that we do it, although I think this is the first time we've really gone through an approval like this. I recommend a full recitation of the approvals given, the motion and the waiver, as well as the conditions. And then what I would recommend, and if this is not your process, I think we should make this your process. There should also be an independent letter going out, giving notice to the landowner, to the applicant, that your application for subdivision or your preliminary land development plan, in this case, is a little different, has been approved, and here are the conditions. Otherwise, you may run into a situation where someone might claim a deemed approval without conditions for a failure to give written notice. So that's how I'd like to do it, if it's okay with the board.
Yes, we do.
No, that
that.
makes
Oh, you do? Okay, fabulous.
Yep.
But
Well-
you want it written on, you want it read on the record.
I do.
All right, I'll give it a whirl.
All right, thank you.
Unless you want Nate to read it, you can.
No, I can read English. I'll get there. All right, so I make a motion that the Board of Supervisors conditionally approve the preliminary minor subdivision plan for 100 Walnut Glen Road dated July 28, 2023, with the following waiver and conditions, so the properties are in compliance with all federal, state, county, and local regulations based on the Franklin Township Planning Commission's recommendation from their October 5th meeting. And these are the waivers. Waivers from section 22-401.3B, requiring a preliminary plan submission. Due to the minimal scope of this submission, Pannoni has no objections to this waiver request. The applicant will, subdivision and land development, do the following. 1, provide a DEP approved sewage facilities planning module shall be provided, 22-503.F. As per section 22-722.D, this section states in part, no construction or paving shall be permitted on the primary or replacement sewage disposal area. This note shall be placed on the final plan before the reporting of this plan. Number 3, any trees which are selected to satisfy landscaping requirements shall be a minimum of 12 feet in height and 2.5 inches in caliber.
Yeah.
Section 22-601-0.1.A6. Number 4, pins and monuments shall be indicated on the final plan to the satisfaction of the township engineer, and that's 22-717. Number 5, the applicant will satisfy all outstanding comments as described in ACOM's review letter dated September 14th, 2023. And then we move to stormwater management. Number 1, all items in Pannoni's review letter, last revised dated October 2nd, 2023, shall be satisfied to the satisfaction of Franklin Township. Now we're into general issues. Note 9, sheet 1A, references utility easements. This note appears to be vague and not indicated on the plan and should be removed. Number 1, at the time of building permit submission, a traffic impact fee will be due in the amount of $667.41 for one proposed evening peak hour trip in the west zone per appendices 25-A and 25-B. Number 2, the proposed common driveway easement agreement and proposed lot description should be provided for the township solicitor and engineer's approval before the recorded plan is released to the applicant. The applicant shall make sure the details of the location and any use and maintenance provisions of the driveway easement will be incorporated into the deeds of both parcels. Number 3, plan note number 6 indicates that the area within the ultimate right-of-way on the north side of Walnut Glen Road is offered for dedication. It is a requirement of the applicant that the ultimate right-of-way should be labeled on the plan. Number 4, place the approved waiver on the cover sheet of the plan prior to the plan being recorded by Franklin Township. Number 5, have the appropriate notarized signature blocks and signatures for both lots will be required prior to the plan being recorded. Number 6, work with the township controller to keep their escrow account up to date and that any outstanding invoices with Franklin Township are paid prior to Franklin Township releasing the recorded plan. And number 7, the applicant shall work with the township solicitor, township engineer, and the township operations manager until there is a successful completion of these tasks. Right, that's the list. So can I have a second for that?
I'll second it.
Thanks, David. Any discussion? Okay, I'm good. Okay, so all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Is Dawn with us? Okay.
She dropped off.
Sent me a text. She's.
She just can't do it. Okay.
I think all the motions are gonna be for.
Okay, so the motion passes 4-0. Thank
Okay,
you.
Do you want me to continue?
Is there more?
Yeah, one more thing.
Oh, yeah, no, this is done now.
Yeah, we created a pedestrian ad hoc committee to discuss the walkability of the township, things like mailbox safety and things of that order. And we met a number of times between January and, just last month. And one of the things that we discussed at the last meeting is in our subdivision ordinance, we refer to sidewalks. So when one creates subdivision, we look at sidewalks and say, does a sidewalk make sense? Do we waive the sidewalk provision? What do we do about sidewalks? Because if you look at sidewalks, given the density of our township with our, low concentration of individuals, it's not likely we're going to have sidewalks in the typical, concrete sidewalk. And so typically when we have a subdivision, they don't make sense and we tend to waive those. And questions come up as to, should we relook at that ordinance and look at other ways of accommodating pedestrians in subdivisions or through the township, other than by using the word sidewalks? It could be a macadam path, it could be a walkway or something of that order. We're not talking about trails. We're talking about, things within divisions, within subdivisions, which are more of a type of a sidewalk or something of that order. We haven't decided what to do, or if we should be doing it. What we'd like to get an idea of, what does the Board of Supervisors want to do? If you look at maps of Chester County, you really only see sidewalks in areas which have, maybe lots which are 40 feet, 50 feet wide, and maybe 100 feet deep, more like city lots. As soon as you get out into, I'll call it more suburban areas, you don't see them. You see streets. And so the typical sidewalk we're not going to have. So would it make sense to change that verbiage? And what we're considering is, what could we change it to? And are you interested in that? And if you are, we would present that to the board at some point as a recommendation for a change to the ordinance. Any discussions on that or thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, and thank you, John, for that summary. It's an interesting problem because it's almost like a case by case basis situation, right?
Exactly.
So I could see it like my neighborhood, it's one street up and down, people don't fly around, and maybe a sidewalk doesn't make sense for 23 houses. But then I look at, I'm just going to pick on like Wheatland Farms, right? Which is a very large subdivision with lots of children in the streets. Maybe that would have been, that's not us, that's not Franklin Township, but that might have been a situation where sidewalks would have been a benefit, right? So I don't know how you write an ordinance or change an ordinance to say, hey, this is really on a case by case basis and maybe we can discuss it. The one caveat is, and I think Paul brought it up when we were talking about trail connection, is, you got when a township has sort of that plan and a developer comes in with wants to develop some land and it's on that yellow line, you negotiate with that developer and say, hey, we've got this 10-year plan. We might not need sidewalks across every house, but can we make that connection here? So it's almost like, do you write an ordinance? And I guess I'll open it up to the rest of the board. You write an ordinance to say, do you consider the connectivity of the township over the connectivity of, say, just the few houses that are within the neighborhood, which I think is probably why we usually waive them, because it only connects houses to each other and doesn't connect to any larger network.
That's correct.
Yeah.
There are there are other townships that are rural as we are that do have ordinances which cover these kind of things, which include sidewalks and other options. So
Yeah.
there are examples we could draw from. We're not looking to do any sort of engineering view. We're just kind of looking at, is it worthwhile us spending our time doing this? And if we do come up with something, is the Board of Supervisors interested in that, or we just want to leave things the way they are? Because what we have has been working. What you said is correct. We would incorporate that into the thinking. Do we want to incorporate that into the ordinance?
John, if we leave it the way it is, wouldn't we just give a waiver every time someone wants to do it in a rural area?
And that's what we do.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we leave it because if you talk about like, if we ever do get Kimballsville redeveloped, right? We're going to probably want it in there for us. It helps us if, you know, in certain spots, you know, big developments and maybe the Kimballsville area where we want to have people walking around. If
Well, we
the
wouldn't
ordinance helps
exclude
us to be there, then we should leave it there.
Yeah, I don't
Right.
think we would exclude it. We were just saying, is there something that we would add to it to give some flexibility? That's the thing.
John, are there other options? It seems like it's a binary thing here, that it's sidewalks or no sidewalks. Are there other options besides sidewalks that you are aware of around the areas or Mid-Atlantic, whatever it might be, that could be a third alternative that could serve the purpose?
There are other ordinances which do talk about other options. And we really haven't spent the time going through them. So what we would look is, we wouldn't look at it making it a none or all situation. We would look at what might fit the situation. And by looking at these other ordinances, we could see this, do any of these fit in our area? And then, bring that up to you and say, this may be worthwhile considering for our township. We're not saying take the sidewalk out. We're not saying force a sidewalk in. We're saying, what are the other options that we might want to include in our ordinance to give that flexibility to the PC and the Board of Supervisors in the future?
So I would be okay for you guys to look at options and come back to us with what else those options are. But I don't want to lose the flexibility the board has to say, yes, no, this, that. I don't want it to, this is 1 of 5, right? I wouldn't be comfortable with us saying in a particular case, and you give a list of conditions, it has to be this, or this particular case, it has to be this. I want to keep the flexibility for the board and for the PC, but it would be helpful to see what those options are. Because right now it's concrete pavement, which I would never vote for. And then, well, I guess I shouldn't say never, but likely not vote for, or nothing, right? So it'd be good to have you guys do the research and tell us what else is possible.
I think that's the way we feel as well. We don't want to force a situation. We want that flexibility of saying it's not appropriate in this situation, and have that flexibility for the PC and also for the Board of Supervisors. So if you agree to that, we'll undertake that as part of the PC.
Yeah. I think we have a question or a comment from Mark.
Sure.
This is Mark Gordon.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Just real quick, I wasn't sure if the township has a sidewalk fund or anything like that, that would, if the ordinance is set up that way, that when a developer has a proposed subdivision and, that the ordinance says we require sidewalks unless they're granted a waiver, and that waiver would then trigger, if they want the waiver, there would be a contribution to the sidewalk fund, and then when the township can use those funds in areas where those sidewalks make sense.
Yeah.
Like in Kimballsville, connecting the post office, the township building, the historic district, that type of thing, wherever the township believes makes sense. Whereas in the southern end of the township where there's no other amenities, it may not make sense. So that's just one thought.
Yeah, it's a good thought, Mark. I think the first step would be to actually have a plan. Right? We don't have a sidewalk plan to begin with, so I think that's probably it. But it's a good concept. As far as how to fund where it does make sense. But I think right now we don't even have a sidewalk plan in place. All right, so we've got,
So John, you got what you needed, right? So you got the go ahead to go think
Okay.
about options, right?
That's all we need. Yes, thank you. It'll
Thank
probably
you.
take us- It'll probably take us a few months before we come back with anything because we have a lot of discussions on what do we want to accomplish and what's good for the township.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the Historic Commission report, there was no meeting this month, but and Paul Agassi is not able to make it, but he did want us to talk about two things. The first one is on Thursday, November 9th, the Historic Commission will have and the New London Area Historical Society will co-sponsor a talk on Cape May history by Ed Tokarski, a member of the Cape May County Historical Society. Talk is in New London's Township building and will start at 7 p.m. Looks like there's no dial-in, so you have to be there in person. And then the second thing he wanted us to mention was that the Mason-Dixon Line Arc Corner Heritage Interpretation and Connectivity Plan will have its first meeting on October 23rd. The meeting will focus on reviewing the project scope of work, the Vision Partnership Program contract, and some initial mapping, and is being led by Sarah Sharp of the Brandywine Conservancy. I think that's all I had for the CARB and Historic Commission.
All right, thanks, Jim. I want to introduce for the Franklin Sportsman Association, Mark Zawada to give us the report.
Okay. This will be quick. Not much has changed since the last month. We're still at 35 members. It's currently archery season. That closes the 24th. And on the 25th of November, the shotgun season opens. There's been hunting activity, but as of now, I don't know of any harvests yet. The community service, we finished the tot lot. The last structure was painted on Sunday, the 15th. So the hours in this report are low because that was after I resubmitted the report. It's about 143.5 hours. And the FSA wanted to thank Andrea Roberts from the Pro. She came down and helped finish that on Sunday. So
Yeah, Mark, the tot lot looks great. Good job.
It's amazing.
It's just up there with my grandson again. So he loves it.
Good job.
Yeah. It looks really good.
hey, Mark, could you say, so hunt those. Right now is archery season. Archery
Yes.
season ends October,
And I'm sorry, November 24th.
November 24th.
And a funny thing is, really, archery doesn't close. You could hunt with a bow during gun season. You just can't hunt with a gun during bow season. Yeah, you're allowed to do
okay.
that.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you can hunt, you can, archery is throughout the whole season.
right,
And then, but the 25th is when shotgun starts.
right,
Okay.
right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, thanks, Mark. So next up is Arrow Consultants, our favorite topic, MS4. Andrew Tulea.
Hi, good evening. I'm assuming everyone can hear me okay. My name is Andrew Talea, and I work with the township to comply with its municipal separate storm sewer permit. And what I'd like to do is summarize a few topics initially related to just annual reporting and other miscellaneous annual items that I'd like to bring up for the board's just consideration information, and then maybe leave the discussion about the TMDL project for last, because my thought is that'll take up a majority of the conversation, if everyone's okay with that. So first topic is we submitted the township's annual MS4 report to PADEP on September 30th. And the report is available through the township office, and it's also on the township website if anyone from the public would like to review it. So as of really as of July 1st, but really now that we've turned the report in, we are in a new stormwater reporting year. So all of the minimum control measures such as outfall inspections, BMP inspections, those are now required again for this year by June 30th of next year. Another item that I'll bring up related to that is we at this point will be required to do outfall inspections again, as well as related to the BMP inspections we did, where we went out and looked at all the storm basins in the township. We sent out letters to private property owners summarizing inspections that resulted in required maintenance. And the board's suggestion was to give 60 days for remediation for those issues. So as of the end of September, that 60-day period has passed. And at this point, really, based upon that time frame, we are eligible to go out and do re-inspections of those facilities. And what I would recommend is doing them in conjunction with our outfall inspections. On top of that, too, this is the time of the year where, as the leaves fall, you're going to have a lot of basins that if you walk, to them at any point between now and the end of November, they're going to have leaves and debris. So I would suggest holding off on doing that at least until all the leaves have fallen, maybe in December at some point, or even early January. But we would like to at least evaluate BMPs that received a letter asking them to perform routine maintenance to just confirm that that has been completed. So there is no really hard deadline at this point, other than we have to have that done by June 30th, and typically winter or very early spring is good to do the outfall inspections and the BMP re-inspections in conjunction, just to make it more efficient.
So are you suggesting the township contacts the people that we sent the letters to and ask them if they've done it, or do you have to actually physically go onto the ground and check to see if they've done it? What do you suggest?
So if people would supply, sufficient photos. So for example, say you got a letter saying that your stormwater inlet was full of leaves and debris, or that there was erosion occurring at your head wall into your basin. If the property owner sent us a picture, showing that they have remediated that issue, from my point of view, typically we would accept that. But having said that as well, we would also go back out at some point that year and do the annual inspection. So if, say that, they, for some reason, nefariously, lied about their remediation, or that there were additional issues that came up after they did that maintenance, we would catch that again at some point in that year. But typically, because we have to go out and do outfall inspections anyway, it just makes sense to also visit those basins that required maintenance and where we solicited remediation while we're doing the outfall inspections, just to get our eyes on it. But we can send out, but if, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it just sounds like it makes, just let you guys do it. It's not like I'm not going to save any time or energy, because you're going to go out again anyways, because you have to do the outfall inspections. So I think what you're telling us, it just makes sense to wait and then do it yourself. Like, look, put your eyes on it is what you're saying. Right.
Now, if residents are willing to send us photos as a courtesy, that's certainly encouraged. But like I said, whether it's, right after that time is up for the days to remediate that we provide, or during the next round of annual inspections or outfall inspections, I recommend we do get eyes on all those properties that we sent letters to.
Andrew, if I recall, the letter that we sent out in June gave either your phone number and or the township's number if you had any questions. Have we received any questions from people it's like, okay, I got the letter. I know I need to do something, but can you help me what I need to do, or could you give me some guidance?
Yes, we have in fact received phone calls from residents, and those have been fielded by myself and Amanda Fetterman of Aero. And what I can say is all of our interactions with residents have been very positive. The response we got from a lot of residents is this was the first time that they're hearing about this, and that this might be the first time that they've actually received a letter asking them to remediate something. And I think it was a good opportunity to just provide education to a lot of the residents and property owners about why we have to do this and what we are asking them to do. And so, what we do is we explain that it's a state requirement. And on top of that, there's also a township ordinance that states that property owners that have a stormwater basin where the basin is noted in the deed, or there's an operation and maintenance agreement issued to that property owner. Typically what we're looking for is that routine maintenance is being demonstrated during our annual evaluation. And everyone we've spoken with has noted that they were willing to comply, and that they would do their best to remediate the issues that we noted within the time given. So, not every single property called us, but we definitely have a handful of people that called us, and it was a good opportunity to touch base and make sure that we were all on the same page from my point of view.
Thank you.
Those are really the annual items that we need to get done at some point between now and June 30th. But I would not recommend doing really either of those at this point just yet, due to the time of season. So, so specific to the townships, just stormwater mapping, we did receive, I believe, one as-built plan for a development that helped us update the stormwater conveyance underground of stormwater pipes. Also provided input on pipe sizes. So as properties get redeveloped and new stormwater infrastructure is introduced or installed, we would just ask the township and Jeff Eastburn or even Pannoni, as they have those plans, to pass them along to us once they're approved, so that we have those on record, just to know if new stormwater infrastructure is being installed and we need to update the master stormwater map. So we will continue to do that, over the course of the future. We also have been, as of last month, we finished the pollution reduction plan for the township, which summarizes that we are participating in the Big Elk Creek stream restoration project. And while we haven't officially submitted that to DEP, we did send it to DEP for their unofficial review, just to make sure that if, with the board's approval, once we do formally put it out for advertisement and submit, we can avoid having any comments kicked back our way. So, again, we have a very good relationship with DEP, so they actually recommend sending documents into them for their unofficial review before any formal submission. So, and we have not heard anything back.
Okay.
Yep. I think that's what you're going to ask. We have not heard back from them yet to that review. So once we hear back from them, if they have no comments, because we're buying into this joint project and we really don't foresee any major issues with our methodology, we'll ask the board for approval to put that out for public advertisement for 30 days. And then once that 30-day period is up, we can submit it to DEP. On top of that too, speaking of the PRP project, we also still have the TMDL requirement that the township must fulfill. And so back at the August meeting, I had presented some information on some potential project locations that the township could utilize to meet that requirement. We identified properties that were township owned that have, a number of streams that we could utilize for restoration projects. We also identified a number of private properties that previously we had, the former consultant had proposed stormwater basin retrofits on. We also identified stream reach on private properties where we could also potentially submit for project locations to meet the TMDL requirement. And if you just recall that meeting, one thing that we had discussed is that, while we can get some credit for basin retrofits, and even tree planting was brought up. All those things are great. And if we're going to do tree planting for reasons other than MS4, it makes sense to try to get credit for those projects. But based upon the sediment reduction requirement for the township, our recommendation was to look at stream restoration due to most efficient way to get our credit by least number of projects and based upon the cost of pound per sediment per credit allocated. So what we had done is talked about those projects, and from that meeting, the board did not have any objections to at least potentially including those sites in our updated TMDL plan, which we have not submitted that to DEP yet, unofficially or officially. And so one update that I'd like to bring up is we were approached by another firm called RES, not specific to Franklin Township. It was actually with Arrow's interaction with another township in Chester County where previously this township had been approached by PennDOT and RES to do stream restoration work in this township. And we had worked with there was actually, let me take a drink of water quick. Excuse me. There's actually a former consultant that worked with PennDOT and was looking for townships to partner in PRP and TMDL projects to meet PennDOT's requirement. So essentially PennDOT has to look at all of their jurisdiction, and they also have an MS4 permit where they have to do PRP and TMDL requirements. They obviously do not have a lot of land to do those projects, so they seek out municipalities that they can partner with where they can design and implement stream restoration or basin retrofits. And because PennDOT is a different permit holder than municipalities, essentially, if PennDOT and a township wanted to do stream restoration where they're both contributing financially to it, let's just say you have X amount of stream reach where you could get 100,000 credits for that stream restoration, both PennDOT and the township could both claim 100,000 credits for that stream restoration, as opposed to if two townships contributed to a stream restoration project, because they are both municipalities, they would have to split the credits equally. So we had been working with PennDOT and their former consultant to do this. And frankly, the former consultant just was not very forthcoming. And actually, they were removed by PennDOT as their consultant for this effort. And PennDOT had already been working with RES, who actually is the design engineer for the Big Elk Creek watershed stream restoration effort. They actually pulled in RES to fulfill the obligations that this other engineer was meant to fulfill for the TMDL projects. And so essentially RES and PennDOT reached out to Arrow back in last month and said, hey, we're taking over for this other engineering firm to get PennDOT's credits. Do you have any municipalities where we can either do a project in that township or borough and get joint credit? Or do you have any municipalities that would be willing to buy into other projects outside of their municipality to purchase credit from the neighboring municipality? And so what I had done was Amanda Fetterman and I had communicated that to Jeff Eastburn and just asked the question if the township would be comfortable at least just sharing the name of our township and what our credit requirement was. And Mr. Eastburn did not have a problem with that. And we gave that information to RES and PennDOT, and actually Jeff Eastburn, I'm sorry, Guy wasn't on the call. It was myself, Jeff Eastburn, and Amanda Fetterman representing the township. And we had an initial conversation with John Kasich and Hannah Kalk, who are two employees of RES, and they just wanted to kind of talk about what they're looking for, and also with Jeff just kind of talking about this process and how a PennDOT and township partnership would work. And so as I stated, at this point, what they are doing is they are looking for municipalities where they can actually do projects within those municipal boundaries. They're actually doing a project right now in New Garden Township. That project is stream restoration at 2 township-owned properties. They have a very similar TMDL requirement as Franklin Township. I believe it's somewhere in the mid 300,000 pounds of sediment reduction per 5 years. So one, RES and PennDOT are already doing this type of project in a similar municipality with a similar requirement. Actually in conversation, I believe that Jeff Eastburn and Chris Himes, the manager of New Garden Township, corresponded about the project. And Chris said that, we have, that he's fine with us working with John Kasich to get information about their project, to learn about how their project is going. And so the one thing we talked about specific to New Garden is that, one, the partnership is between PennDOT and New Garden Township, and they made an agreement to do stream restoration. New Garden Township is contributing, financially to the project, where PennDOT is using RES to do most of the legwork with the design and the engineering. And at this point, they have fulfilled or at least plan to fulfill the majority of the credits that New Garden Township needs. And so while there isn't, we don't have the option at this point to buy enough credits in New Garden to meet our total TMDL requirement. RES did indicate that there may be excess credits that they would be willing to sell to New Garden, to Franklin Township, that are excess credits that New Garden Township might not need. Now, those credits at this point, he did not define a number. And just for reference, our sediment reduction requirement, including our BMP reductions, is around 360,000 pounds of sediment reduction. When I asked the question, how many credits will be available for purchase, John Kasich from RES said it's unclear. It could be anywhere from 5,000 credits to 50,000 credits. So while 5,000 credits wouldn't get us a lot, depending on what the rate is, it still might not be a bad consideration. But if it's upwards of 50,000 credits, that could knock out a decent portion of our requirement. And depending on the purchase rate, again, I think it's worth a consideration. So they don't know exactly how many credits are available now, but they're hoping to have a number within the coming, within the next month or two. And once they know that, Chris Himes or John Kasich is going to communicate that to myself and Jeff Eastburn, and I can present that to the board and see if it's something that we would like to consider to help fulfill at least a portion of the TMDL requirement. But specific to Franklin Township, we talked at length about really what RES is looking for from the township. And at this point, they are looking for partners where they can solidify locations and actually implement projects within that township. And because Franklin Township does have a significant amount of stream reach on public and private property, they are interested in knowing whether or not this is something that we want to consider. And so while there's still a lot to be determined about their opinion on streams that Arrow has already identified starting on township property, really what they asked first is, one, within the next week or two, we as an RES would like to potentially go out on township owned property and just look at the streams from their point of view. And on top of that, they would like to know if the township would be willing to share all the information that Arrow has compiled in terms of the maps that I've compiled and the table showing each property with stream reach and how much stream reach is on each property, my photos of each stream. They wanted to know if we'd be willing to share that information with them. And so, and then moving forward, what they would be looking for, and I'm just trying to outline the entire time frame at this point, what they would be looking for sometime around early 2024, let's say January or February, is a quote unquote firm commitment from the township to explore this opportunity. That does not mean that we would be on the hook to sign anything in January. It does not mean that we would be on the hook to pay for anything in January. But what's going to happen is they are trying to identify partners and come up with the best cost per pound that they can come up with. And so, long story short, if we at least would give a firm commitment, they would proceed with some initial planning and potential design efforts, as opposed to if we would say, nope, not interested, they would most likely move on to another township and look for projects at that township. And that's not to say that we can't come back in 6 months down the road and buy credit, but what's going to happen is we're not going to get the best price per pound of sediment. We would essentially get any leftover credit at a higher rate. So, at January, February, really they're looking for a quote unquote firm commitment, but we're not required to sign anything. And even after that point, we still have the opportunity to say, no, thanks, we're not interested.
Okay, so we need to be ready to get ready in January. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Right.
So it sounds like, I mean, I'm trying to parse through what you just went through here. And it sounds like there's a lot of options out there right now, right? PennDOT might have some available credits. Yes. Minimal. We have a plan, or we have I should say we have a plan. We have an audit of what is available. And I think from my perspective, and I'd like to hear from the rest of the board, you know, we're trying to parse through what is the absolute best path for us. And what it comes down to is the dollar per sediment pound that we can get. We want the cheapest sediment we can buy. And so from my perspective, I think that'll be based on your analysis, right? Is to come up with us and say, here's the cheapest path forward that we can get to achieve, the objective of our, our MS4 requirements. And so, I mean, I know you just went through it all, but I'm still not.
I just want to be clear too, though. And this is not your problem; it's our problem. But the cost is amazing. I mean, the cost is blowing our minds of how much this thing's going to cost us. So I 1 of 5 am totally for what is it? A commitment not to commit, but to explore. I'm for that. But I don't want us agreeing at some time in the future to a $5 million project that we can't even afford. So as long as we can work with them step by step, agree, it's not going to be like it's going to be $5 million or it's not going to be anything. As long as we can work with them and talk to them, I just don't want us at the end of the day committing to a $5 million project, because we couldn't afford a $5 million project even if we wanted to.
Andrew, the one thing I've been thinking about, and tell me if this makes sense or if this is somewhere down the road. We get a lot more bang for the buck the bigger you are with regards to purchasing power. And I was wondering, first of all, can the townships as a whole do the work, pay for it, and go back to the state of Pennsylvania and say, this is our plan, we're submitting our plan, but we would like the Pennsylvania to use its large purchasing power to help with us with cost. 1, 2, related to that is, when do we get, and does it make sense to get together with other townships locally that are there under your purview or privy, whatever the word is, or not, to get together, meeting like we did with John Arbach, who is a former supervisor, where we did that with the Avon Grove. I don't know what the feedback is, but the Avon Grove, or the fire police department. And the idea with that is at least we're all working together, and there might be opportunities even for that to save some money. The whole idea, but with both ideas, is to save township money. So does it make sense to do so? And if so, when would we organize a committee of township leaders to get together?
So, in terms of doing our own project and then so you're saying doing our own project, then going to the state and saying, hey, would you want to purchase credit from our project? To me, yeah.
Not really. Like, just let's say we do all the design, we do everything, but when it comes time to buy equipment, or I know we're not doing trees necessarily, but doing trees or doing the actual physical construction of the project, we would have a lot more purchasing power if Pennsylvania helped us out, or a lot of townships pushed it back to Pennsylvania, and then they bought what we needed to get this work done. Or if that doesn't work, at least the townships get together, come up with best ideas amongst each other, and then also we might even on the smaller scale have purchasing power as a smaller entity, a smaller group of people.
Yeah, so I think it's worthwhile to identify, and I have a list of other townships that have a TMDL requirement in this area. It might be worthwhile to reach out to them and say, hey, do you have a plan in place yet? And, if so, has your project been completed? If not, is there a benefit to the two of us doing some kind of joint project, or do you have excess credit that we can buy from you? The one thing that I will say about going municipality to municipality is typically, because we would be, so like, let's just say we got in just with, I'm trying to think of a township around here. So like, let's just say that we reached out to New London Township or London Grove Township and said, hey, you have stream reach in your, township. If you haven't done a project yet, could we go at this together where we contribute, you contribute, we figure out maybe an agreed maintenance, agreement? Would you be interested in doing that? I think that's a worthwhile conversation, but the one thing I'll say about partnering with PennDOT directly, as opposed to just partnering with other municipalities, is that typically if it's municipality partnering with just a municipality, DEP will want to see how you are contributing and who's contributing what. And typically what they'll do is only give you credit for what you are actually contributing to with that stream restoration project. So if so let's just say it's 1,000 feet of stream restoration. If Franklin Township only pays for a third of it, but London Grove Township pays for 2/3, it's likely the DEP would say, Franklin Township, you can get 1/3 of that project credit, as opposed to partnering with PennDOT. Typically, because it's state to municipality, you both can claim the entire reach of that stream for credit. So, but I do think it's worth a conversation, at least reaching out to those other municipalities to see if they have excess credit to sell, or if there is some other way that we can, join together and work out a competitive cost per pound of sediment credit. So,
Andrew, yeah, last question on this is, I believe the estimate is somewhere $3 million. I'm sorry, $3 million over 5 years or 6 years? 6 years. 5 years. I guess my question would be, for budgeting purposes, I know we're at the early stages, and if this has been done internally here, and I'm not aware of it, we don't need to spend time on it. But what would you expect a expense curve to look like in 2024, which we're at which might be the first inning of the game? Maybe it maybe starts kicking in June, July, I don't know. And how would you expect then maybe that number to peak out, or that 600,000 or so flatten out over the next little bit? How long will that take?
Well, so okay. So you're asking what is going to be the cost for all this over the course of the 5-year permit cycle, like starting next year, including these projects?
Yeah, I mean, if the number's 3 million over 5 years, that's $600,000 a year. 2024, I'm estimating would not be $600,000 because we don't have anything
Right.
approved or anything. But would 2025 be 600,000 or would the ramp up year be 2025 and then it'll really start 26, 27, just to get a rough idea.
So right now we don't have an approved permit. So, as soon as we submit our TMDL and PRP, the clock starts for year one, essentially. And I would say once we have an approved permit and have a clear path, I would say it would behoove us to at least start on initial survey and design of a site. And so a majority of the cost is going to be for construction, but I would say within the first year, just like, let's just say ballpark, we set aside 200 grand just for doing survey and design and creating bid and spec documents for sites that we've identified where we could potentially get these credits. Typically that's the first step, and that first step would allow us to have something to submit for grants. So, so by this spring, we're obviously not going to probably have any designs ready, but say that the board would authorize, again, let's just say 200 grand for initial survey, design, and bid and spec documents for 2 sites for stream restoration. Just ballpark, that would take about a year or so. Once those designs have been approved, we then have the green light to apply for grants. But then at that point, it's really up to the board to determine, do we want to spend that money for construction as soon as the projects get approved, or do we want to wait a year or two to actually implement the projects, because the projects aren't going to be required until year 5 of the permit. So my recommendation would be to go ahead with initial survey and design, as soon as we can. But then, what we can do is we could either do the projects immediately, and, especially if we apply for grant funding, they're going to want to see typically how we can spend that money as quickly as possible. So, it almost does make sense to have a plan, or at least allocate the money once we have our designs approved, so that if we apply for a grant and our designs are approved, part of that grant application is going to say, all right, this is a $500,000 grant. You can use, this for design, for survey design and for construction. They might ask for matching funds as well. So they might ask for 15% matching funds of that. But they're going to want to see that we can spend the money as quickly as possible. They're really not going to, our chances of getting a grant by having a design ready, but saying, we can't at least match funds until 2 years from now, that's really not going to put us in a good position to win those grants. So I think we almost have to be ready year 1 to pay for survey and design. And then if we want to be applicable for grants, almost have a plan to have some money allocated for year 2 and 3. But outside of grants, if this is all just going to be money from the general fund of the township, we don't actually have to have these projects in by 2029 or even constructed by 2030, depending on when a permit gets approved. So does that answer your question, or do I need to provide more detail?
No, it does. It's just scary
Thank
because
you.
we don't have $3 million to do this, but we hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
Right.
And Andrew, just for clarification's sake, if we do work with PennDOT within Franklin Township, they're responsible for the maintenance, correct?
So that's a good point, Jeff. That's one thing that we talked about with RES is, hey, aside from a financial contribution, what else can you offer us? And the one thing that RES was that they did say is that they would assume all inspection, maintenance, and repair responsibility for these projects if we would do a partnership. So, and frankly, I know that, it was brought up at a prior meeting. What happens if there's a catastrophic storm event where our stream restoration gets wiped out and we have to do, regrading or replanting or, stream bank repair? That is something that RES indicated that they would be responsible for. From what they said, that would be a long-term responsibility. So one thing that we want to confirm with them is, I know the last consultant for PennDOT was very wishy-washy about how long that maintenance would continue for, whether it's they're offering 5 years or they offering, as long as this project is in, place. But from talking to RES, they were offering to be the ones that ultimately maintain this, do all of the annual maintenance and do a repair replacement if needed long term. And to that point, they have to, just like us, they would be on the hook for this project. So, let's say that there would be a major storm and the project would need, significant maintenance. Just like the township would be, they would be, obligated under their permit to ensure that that gets fixed in some way. So, even though they're offering to do the maintenance, they are also on the hook to also ensure that that gets done long term. So, but that's one thing that they did offer. The one thing that we also talked about is what would that cost per pound be potentially, because we have the Big Elk Creek project where we got a very competitive cost per pound of sediment reduction. And the feedback that we got from RES was, we can't give you a cost per pound of sediment right now, but due to the fact that this is a whole different report and that the TMDL calls for restoration of a different watershed and different stream restoration protocols will likely be required for this project as opposed to the Big Elk Creek, they did anticipate that the cost per pound would be higher than what was offered in the Big Elk Creek. And John said that that could range anywhere from $3-4 a pound all the way up to $6 or $7 per pound. They just don't know yet. So unfortunately, I don't think we'll get as good of a deal dollar per pound for that project. But if PennDOT RES is offering to do the maintenance now and forever, that's also something else to consider as well. That the township, while it might be a greater initial contribution, it would that maintenance requirement that they're taking on would result in time and cost savings of staff and materials for the township long term as well. So and it sounds like that they're probably not going to ask for a formal agreement. So just kind of getting back to my timeline. Right now, within the next week or two, they're asking for data sharing and for permission to go on site. January for a firm commitment, which is not an official commitment. And in all likelihood, they'd be asking for us to look at an agreement sometime between next summer and the end of next fall, where we would actually make it, official, pen to paper. We're buying X amount of credits for this dollar amount. So, so hopefully that gives everyone a better, understanding of the timeline they're looking for. But yeah, essentially, if it's January and we say, hey, we're not interested, they're going to move on to somebody else, and whatever they're offering may not be available 6 months down the road. So I don't think we need to make a decision, obviously a commitment tonight, but for my recommendation, I personally don't see any reason to not do data sharing and allow them site access. The worst that can happen is, they give us their summary and we say, no, thanks. So, and the fact that we've worked with RES in the past on other projects, I think they're a reputable firm, and the fact that, they're working with New Garden Township now, and their township manager, indicated that they were also a reputable consultant. My recommendation would just be to at least do some initial data sharing and say that they have the opportunity to go out and look at some of the streams on public property that we identified, at least.
Yeah, Andrew, just a matter of clarity there too, with Pico I'm sorry, not Pico, with PennDOT doing their projects, you said that there's a sharing 100% each. So that would obviously lower the cost by 50% if we were to do it on our own versus with Pico, right? Or I keep saying Pico, I'm sorry, PennDOT. And then, so I mean, that seems like a no-brainer to go that way with, and RES is working with PennDOT to do that. Is there any risk of us sharing our information with RES? I don't know. I can't think of anything. Why wouldn't we?
So, so one thing to say to that is that, you know, a lot of this information that we, you know, have compiled. One, it's all in public meeting. You know, we've submitted a lot of our documents to these meetings, so a lot of it really is public information. Some of this information we've been put in the annual report. So, no, I don't really see a downside at all in sharing at least the photographs and some addresses with StreamReach. And, you know, frankly, if they wanted to look at, you know, do this stuff on their own, you know, use maps and GIS to identify properties with StreamReach and, you know, measure it. And even if they wanted to go out, most, you know, at least on public property, you know, they could probably get that information anyway. And two, I don't see anything in terms of what we're sharing would be a risk to the township, would be my response.
Can we give like a nod to say go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say yes.
Sure.
Yeah. So, but again, I think because the price, from what John Flatley said, it's not going to be as good of a deal as the Big Oak Creek project. While I do think that, you know, I guess my point is, I don't know sitting here today what the cost per pound is going to be. And, you know, certainly Arrow could provide a, you know, full proposal to do the same kind of work. But because we've worked with RES in the past, and because, you know, from my point of view, is to get the townships, you know, the best deal, you know, dollar per pound of sediment reduction. Again, I think it's a good opportunity to at least consider and at least do some initial data sharing. And then once they've maybe reviewed our data and gone out and took some pictures, my guess is that RES would want to meet at least with myself and Jeff Eastburn and anybody else on the board that would want to attend. I'm sure you know, we could set up some kind of virtual meeting to discuss any questions you have directly. So no, again, I think it's at least a good opportunity to consider, share some data, and then regroup with them after in a couple of weeks and see what their thoughts are on next steps and what can potentially be done. So the one thing that they did bring up too is that it's not out of the question. There are a number of private properties that have StreamReach and that actually have StreamReach that connect to streams on township property. So while if we can get all of our credit and they can get a significant chunk of credit on township property, they may also ask about some private properties, and the township's thought about whether it would be worthwhile or acceptable to reach out to certain property owners to ask if they'd be willing to, you know, potentially also join in on a joint stream restoration project if their properties will be ideal for stream restoration, and if we think we could yield a significant amount of credit from those properties as well. So just something to consider, but I think initially you know, what they're asking for is just to look on township owned property at those streams. So, that's all I have tonight for my MS4 update. Are there any other questions that anybody has specific to the TMDL plan, the PRP, or just any MS4 topics in general?
Yeah, so the PRP has PennDOT been approved yet for their PRP?
To my knowledge, I've not gotten word that their PRP has been approved yet at this point.
Wow.
If I can, I have been communicating with Daryl St. Clair, and he has our agreement, and it's in the hands of legal. And I do have a preliminary response from legal that I'm not prepared to share until I understand it. But I get the impression that they're still operating outside of any agreement.
All right. Thanks. Now you've been waiting for this, Bob. So finally, we're going to go to the Macness zoning hearing application. And do I need to make the motion first or?
So I mean, I think
Uh-huh.
one of, sorry, so I think what we could do is just maybe have Mark walk us through
Okay.
what the situation is. And then from my understanding, we're not making a decision here other than just say we would support granting a waiver. It's up to the zoning board, but we're either support, oppose, or we don't have opinion on this matter. Okay. And this requires a motion, but we have a motion to
And we have-
either support or not. Okay. All right. So Mark, can you help us out with this, this situation?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And so basically, the way you summarize it is perfect. It's the zoning hearing board is the one who makes this decision. But we send it to the Board of Supervisors for your review, your comment and questions. And if you feel strongly about a zoning hearing board application, you can make that known to the zoning hearing board in either the opposition, the support, or if it's just a take no position and allow the zoning hearing board to hear the merits of the application, take into account the conditions of the property and weigh those against the 5-prong test, right, of zoning variance request. And in this case, we have the Macness property at 316 Chesterville Road. Mr. Macness would like to operate a home occupation from the property. We reviewed the property and reviewed his application to determine that the shed that he wants to use to operate his upholstery shop is within the front yard setback, because the road has a 75-foot setback because it's a state road. That shed is approximately 30 to 35 feet from the property line along Chesterville Road. So that's variance number one. That's sheds are not permitted in the front yard, and it doesn't comply with that requirement. There's also a requirement that, you know, he has a sign that he liked to use that he had from his old shop in Delaware County. He'd like to reuse that on this shed, and it's larger than what the ordinance allows. He's proposing a 3 square foot sign. The ordinance allows for up to 2 square feet. So we're it's a small, in my opinion, small variance request in that regard. And then the third is an area and bulk requirement of the LDR district, which is that accessory structures are not permitted within the front yard setback area. So we're going back to that same requirement. It's 2 areas of the zoning ordinance, so we want to capture them both in the zoning hearing application. And Mr. Macness is asking for those 3 variances in his application. If successful tomorrow night, we will resurrect the home occupation permit and get him on his way so that he can start doing his trade that he's been doing for, I think, 40 plus years probably. And he's very good at it. So basically upholstery for furniture, car seats, boat seats, all that type of stuff. So, and as you know, variance, that 5-prong test that I mentioned, we have to determine, are there unique physical circumstances with the property? Well, the Macness property is straight up and down, basically from the road straight up the hill. The house is on the flattest part and everything else has a slope. So that property has unique physical characteristics. Number two, because of those physical circumstances or conditions, he can't physically meet the requirements of the ordinance. And then number three, that such unnecessary hardship has not been created by the appellant. So he didn't create this lot, although he purchased it. It is a very steep lot, and it poses difficulties for structures and the like. Number four, the variance, if authorized, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, which we don't believe it will. It's a small home occupation. We'll have very few people coming and going, and you won't even know it's there, except for there'll be a small upholstery sign on the side of the shed. And then the fifth one, that the variance, if authorized, will represent the minimum variance that will afford relief. And that's up to the zoning hearing board to determine, I believe. So, but in our opinion, it's staff's opinion, and speaking with the solicitor as well in this matter, this was fairly straightforward. And we're here tonight to just present to you. And we have a draft motion that basically just outlines that you'll take no position. The zoning hearing board hear the case and the merits and render a decision based upon the requested relief and any applicable case law. You could say we oppose it. You could say we support it. It's up to you.
All right. So
Any
thanks.
question?
Yeah, so let me just sum up here real quick. So the issue is, and this is based on the zoning rules. Right now, we didn't necessarily identify any issues. But based on the zoning, the problems are the sheds there's a shed in front of the house. That's problem number one. Problem number two is that it's an accessory use. It's going to be a business in front of the house. Is that what you said?
Right. So the home occupation ordinance says that you can't have the business in the front yard.
Front of the house. Right.
Right.
Right. So, and then there was the other issue. Was there an issue because it was within 35 feet of the road? Right. So that was the first
That's
one.
a
And then
setback. Yep.
the setback. And then the other issue is they're going to put that little sign in front of the.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's discuss as far as what if you have anything to add here.
Yeah, I went down today with Guy, Jeff, and Donna, and I don't see I don't see a problem whatsoever. I mean, there's nothing really that Bob could have done differently. You should see, if you haven't been there, you should see the slope. I mean, this is a piece of property that probably should not have been approved of X number of years ago to build a house, because there's no 75-foot length, but it was. And it's a very rural road. I asked if anyone had complained about the shed that has been there for roughly 15, 18 months, give or take. And no one has complained. So it's not, an eyesore issue or complaints going on. Rather than being neutral, I don't know how much weight he carries, but I would be supportive of saying that the board would be in favor of approval with potential conditions.
Right.
Okay. I'm gonna kind of echo Stefan's comments. I've been by there many times, been over there. It's not an eyesore by any means. Bob did a nice job. It matches his house. The sign is only 18 by 24. That doesn't bother me at all. I think it's Bob's a community guy. I think it would be nice to have that little shop in the community for anybody to use. So I support it as well. No issues.
Great. Thank you. Donna?
So I also support, and I love the sign. So I go for all of it. And I think you fulfill all the conditions for the waiver. So I'm in favor of the waiver.
Yeah, I mean, I think, not to spend too much time on this, because I think everyone kind of said the issues, but the way I look at zoning variances are you creating a nuisance for your neighbors? And are you creating a safety issue for the residents? And then, maybe to a lesser point is the thing ugly, right? Which is talking about maintaining the character of the neighborhood. And when I look at all of those things, none of those are taking place. Bob doesn't have any neighbors per se. There's the offset doesn't impose any safety issue through traffic or sight lines. It's kind of tucked in the property. And there's obviously, I don't think there's any safety issues. So I would be in support if I guess I'd be supportive. I don't know how the motion is written, but I would support granting the waiver if the zoning hearing board doesn't find any issues.
Did you want me to read it that way? And then we
Yeah.
can- So I make a motion that the Board of Supervisors support the zoning hearing board application and allow the zoning hearing board to hear the case at their October 19th meeting and render a decision based upon the requested relief, unique conditions of the property, and any applicable case law. Can I have a second for, okay, and Jim will second that. Okay, any more discussion? No, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, so motion carries 4-0.
Okay, so I will draft a quick letter tomorrow and present that to the zoning hearing board, just stating that your motion, and we'll see what happens, and I'll let the board know how we make out.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Great.
Okay, next,
Are we, real quick question, what we just motioned, Mark said that we could be, as a Board of Supervisors, neutral, in favor, or not in favor. I know we
Correct.
approved in favor.
Yeah. You're supporting the application.
Okay, just to make sure that I apologize.
So
Yeah.
the application is for the waiver.
so we're in favor of,
Yes, as opposed to a neutral stance where we are in favor. Okay, just make sure.
Can we override the zoning hearing board? So
No, no, you can't.
So we can't say, well, we totally disagree with the zoning hearing board. They're out of line here. We want to. Okay.
Well, yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's their decision to make. You are considered to be a party,
Right.
even though you're
Can
not going to
appeal.
participate. You can, if you observe, if you see something you don't like any party, you can take an appeal of it if you wish.
Right.
But the decision is the ZHP's decision, not the Board of Supervisors.
Right. Understood. Okay. Well, good.
thank you,
luck, Bob.
thank you,
We're
Mark.
good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, next was the Avondale Fire Company was going to present their 2024 budget. Is Guy on?
Nope, he's not here.
Did he come and then leave?
I didn't see him at all.
Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe we just didn't show. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Zoning hearing board alternate position.
Yeah, we have two resumes here. I don't know how we want to handle this, but we have a Walter Johnson, not the Hall of Fame pitcher, but Walter Johnson here, as well as a resume from expressed interest from Mike Zerker, who is not on the call. I don't know if we want to have Walter give a intro or how you guys want to do this.
Yeah, well.
He's been on.
I would
for a while.
suggest, Walter, thank you for hanging in there with us. We had a fairly long discussion before we got to you. So yeah, we have an opening as a zoning hearing board alternate. We have your resume in front of us. Maybe you could briefly introduce yourself and talk a little bit about why you think you might be a good candidate for this.
Yeah, hi, I'm Walter Johnson. I think I've been a township resident for about 10 years. My background is mechanical engineering. For the last 15 years, I've been working in the chemical manufacturing industry. For the last 10 years or so, I've been heavily focused in project management, portfolio development. So got a lot of experience reviewing scopes, reviewing drawings, overseeing construction, overseeing larger capital portfolios, managing projects to building codes, to internal policy, external regulation. And I think is that, kind of with my background, I can probably give back a little bit to the township through the zoning hearing board alternate position. That's all.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Walter.
Thanks, Walter.
The other resume we have here is from Michael Zerker, who guess is not on the call. However, he's as far as a brief synopsis, he's a C-level executive with global experience in general management, marketing, sales, business development, operations of highly regulated CPG companies. So again, he comes with some C-suite experience. I don't really have a good sense on, how we make our decision.
I was gonna ask you.
But I was going to say, Walter's a project manager. So am I. So I feel like there's a kinship there. So I would be in support of Walter, simply because he's here and he has relevant experience.
And I'd second that.
I agree.
So,
I always, if someone's gonna take the time to sit for 2.5 hours, that's
that is,
You passed the test.
you've already, that is the expectation of a zoning hearing board. So
Yeah, but I think it's a good point to say you do have the experience
yeah.
that would fit well into that position. So I think the fact that you're familiar with building codes, you've overseen construction, you've done, you understand scope and project management. I think we're just a little tired, but I think that's that speaks well of you, and I think
I agree.
makes us supportive of your selection. Do we need to vote? Do we have to vote? Oh, okay.
Okay.
Why
So
don't you make a
we
motion?
have a motion on here.
We don't.
All right, so I make a motion to appoint Walter Johnson to the zoning hearing board as an alternate. And what is the term?
December 31st, 2025.
Until December 31st, 2025.
31st.
31st. Yeah, we're getting punchy.
I'll
December.
second that.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Aye.
Hey, Walter. Walter,
Yep.
can you, you need to sign a oath of office and a statement of financial interest if you want to sit in tomorrow night's meeting.
So he's asking, can you come to the office tomorrow and sign the forms?
Do you have the forms?
He does.
We have the forms here, but there's an unfortunate thing here. I'm not going to be here tomorrow.
Jeff, if you
Yeah, to be
want to leave,
notarized.
you want to leave those for me, I can walk him through that.
Okay.
Yeah, just send me an email and I can swing by.
All right. Well, congratulations, Walter.
All right, thank you.
Welcome. Yeah.
Aye. All right. Budget. So all right. So right, as we do every year, we're starting our preliminary budget review. So what the process is this is the first step, which is we take a look at where we were last year and what the suggestion is this year. Generally speaking, what happens if there is no major items or major changes, we tend to keep the budget items the same, simply because the items that we spend our money on don't change from year to year. However, this year we have to take a pretty close look at the budget and make some decisions around basically stemming from our MS4. We talked about about MS4 for about 45 minutes during this meeting tonight. And one of the things we didn't mention too in depth is the amount of money we are going to be spending over the next 5 or so years on this. And so that comes to an average of about $450,000 a year. It's going up to what, 600?
Well, if you look at the cost, it's based on what Andrew has given us. He was looking at $50,000 a year to do just the permit.
Yeah.
So that's like 250,000. I know
Yeah.
Stefan's adding this up in his head. It's 200,000 for $200,000 over 5 years, right? To do some of the engineering, there was 50,000 for something else. I can't remember. And then 2,500,000 for the
For the
project.
projects.
So it's $4 million
So
or
And-
3 million. Yeah.
yes,
$3
$3.5 million
Yeah, $3 million,
over
right.
5 years. And then when you get, so to put that in perspective, as far as the township budget goes, it's a huge chunk of money. It'll be the biggest infrastructure spend that Franklin Township has. Roughly equivalent to our yearly road program. And so when you put that in context, we just have to come up with the shortfall from somewhere, and we have to look at our budget. And that's the first step is, okay, well, where can we make some cuts? And so that's where we're at. So
I think there's another, I mean, if you just look in the first page that Melissa prepared for us, I don't know if you guys have it in front of you, but if you look at the general fund, you see like there's a 612,000 deficit just in the general fund. And that's pretty much reflected by what you just talked about, the MS4. But the other thing to keep in mind too, is I know that for the emergency service fund, I know it has a $54,000 cash balance, but a lot of it has to do because the general fund is putting money into that every year. Totally agree we need to do it, but we're constantly pulling money out of the general fund to pay for important services that aren't being covered by the tax allocations. Just keep that in mind. Same thing with open space fund. We have tax allocated for the loan for open space, but once again, money has to get pulled out of general fund to pay for that. And it's never been a problem before because there was enough money in the general fund to do that. But because of what the MS4 is having us do, there's just nothing, we're nothing left to pull, you know what I mean? It's
Right.
just, there's just the general fund is being tapped out.
And I think I should add too, that this, we knew MS4 was going to hit our budget in a pretty impactful way. What's changed, I think, over the last year is the amount of money. So we originally anticipated something around $250,000 a year, which is something that we could manage, and that's doubled in that time, more than doubled in that time in the past 12 months. So this is where we're saying, okay, well, we really need to think about how we're going to fund this stuff.
And I think that was really important why, Stefan, I know that's why you asked the question, right? You wanted to know why, if we were just looking at 2024, I know in the prudent way would have to be putting $600,000 away a year. That would make sense, right? But I think Stefan was saying, okay, how much do I have to have? How much has to be there in 2024? Yeah.
Expense curve.
Right.
Yeah, because when we look at the 2024 budget that Melissa diligently put together, we're taking a big chunk in year one. Well, we don't have to. So
We're
this
not
is
going to be able to.
Well,
Is the real thing.
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah, I mean, so what we're doing is we're probably need to set aside 200, maybe put a little cushion in there, 250 for MS4 permitting or all the other stuff that needs to be done. And the good thing too is we may have a couple extra years on the tail end to actually fund this stuff. I just want to clarify one thing too, is that if you take the midpoint of the email that Andrew sent on September 27th at $2 million, I mean, maybe we want to be conservative, but if you take the midpoint of the range, it's 2 million divided by 5 is $400,000 plus the $60,000 of permit compliance. I don't know if that includes the firm, whatever the company's called, fee. It's end of the day, whatever their engineering fees as well. So 500,000 plus. I'm sorry.
Well, it's 200,000 for engineering.
Per year.
No, 200,000 over 5 years for engineering.
Per year.
It's 50,000 per year,
Yeah, I know.
per year for just maintenance, just to do the permit maintenance.
Right.
So I don't know. Steve, but-
That's
So-
error. That's error.
So you're talking about $500,000 a year, and maybe 525 to be conservative. But for 2024, it's 225.
I don't know.
I mean, that's what he told us.
Yeah, but we're not doing any of the remediation work yet.
Right,
But
you have to
at the
have
end-
at least the 200,000.
Right, we need the 200,000.
at least. And then whatever.
Plus their costs, plus Arrow's
Yeah,
costs.
so that's what you're saying, 250,000.
Yep,
That's it.
that's where we are this year.
I mean, when I looked at the budget there, I mean, there's a couple of things. I don't know. One is, well, don't forget, hopefully there's a little bit of lagniappe, which is a Cajun word. Maybe we'll get some grant money.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't want to factor that in. But you look at contract snow removal. I think there's $100,000 there. I know it goes into some general fund, but then we need to, instead of having everything go to general fund and then have it come out where we're overspending, which I think is what you're saying, where we're overspending or under budgeting in one area. We need to have, maybe closer eyes on that type of stuff. So, but that's $100,000. The road program. I'm sorry, John Arbach, but $200,000, $200,000 would be something we need to cut. The reason I say the snow removal, that's something we asked for, and Melissa gave us a little while back. We've never spent anywhere near, and even if we cut that budget by $100,000, we still have never spent that amount of money in the last 1 year in the last five-ish years. $200,000 for roadside, $15K for the park and land. I can't even read my handwriting. Park and land, zoning, planning, general, $30,000. $32,000 no longer goes to the reserve fund.
These are your suggestions.
Yes.
No, I think that's really good.
Those are all.
Put them in yeah, you already thought about all these, right? Yeah, I think they're, maybe just make a bulk. Yeah, send it to, I think they're all good. Send it to Melissa so we can look at them.
Because if we got 200,000 from the roadside, that is close enough to our 2024 need. And then if we can figure out.
Take two, so I don't know if I think it has to get lower, but I don't know if it, because we would have to talk to
Cut the
Jeff.
whole road program.
Yes.
No, I don't cut the whole thing.
No, not the whole. No.
I reduced it to 100,000, I think.
You did 100,000 as 150 for something else, stormwater.
Yeah.
So we need a road program, because if you don't do something, you'll end up back to where you were
Well,
5 years ago. It's just how far do we, so I could be in favor, but I have to hear from Jeff, what Jeff has to say, cutting 100,000 out of it, but I don't know if I want to, and then we still have liquid fuel.
You still have to look at the.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the road program budget, the starting point is understanding what do we need in the road system? Is there a road that's blown up that we need to repair this year? Or are there just, nice to haves? And so that'll tell us how much we should.
But you got to remember, it's not just the road. A lot of the water stuff. What do you call it?
It's going to be the stormwater management, like in Thompson Estates and Southview Estates. That's going to be a big nut for the township. but
150,000 though
Probably more.
for 2024.
Could be.
Okay.
But
But
the point is that does it all need to get done in 2024? Right, so-
Well, it's like whether the chicken or the egg came first. We have to have some concept of what we can spend. So we can either go Thompson Estates or Southview Estates. Two totally different projects, two totally different costs. They're not going to be close. I can't sit here and give you a figure tonight, but it's going to be.
The point would be
salty.
prioritization.
Right, which is.
Not that are they like that's the question is if you have a list, and it's like we do with the road program every year. We come up with a list of 10 roads that are problematic, and we choose the top 3 that need to get done. Right. So with the stormwater, right, we can spend. I mean, we can spend an infinite amount of money on stormwater remediation. You put up those two options, and you say, "Well, I'm not going to know what I need to do until I know how much money I have." I would take a step back and say, "You tell us which of those 2 projects are your priority that must be done in 2024," and then we can say, "Oh, well, let's budget to get this project done this year because." You prioritize it as the most urgent and the other one can wait.
But list them both and an estimated cost, right?
Right.
Yes.
Right. But I think that's what we're kind of saying with that and with the road program in general is, we're looking at must be dones
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of would like to be done.
Right, exactly.
I mean, we're at the point with Thompson Estates. It's causing serious erosion issues.
So that would be so
And-
you would, when you propose, when you come to us with a proposal, you would say just that, this is the highest priority project
Right.
that must be done in 2024.
What about does this at all affect our open space projects? If there are hypothetically available pieces of land that we want to partner with other.
There's no money.
Okay.
I mean, just, I know you know this, but I'll just say it again for the public. This is not like a 5-year problem that we have to solve. This is a problem that will never
It never
go
ends.
away. It will only get more expensive. So,
Unless Congress in the state Congress changes.
yeah.
it.
All
All
right.
The thing is that one thing I look at it is that I wouldn't want to be the lead in any of this crap. I would not want to be
No, no, no.
I would not want to be the township. I want to go make sure we check all our boxes. And I want every other township that is in worse situation than we are to bitch and complain, which they should. And then maybe politicians will hear it. And then by the time we actually have to go through this stuff, maybe there will be some change of heart or some lessening of pain.
I mean, it is an unreasonable amount of money to be spending for something that I don't see as having a direct benefit to the residents. Right. I mean, we're talking about finding problems, right? Like we're inventing problems in some areas, right? Going out of our township to pay money to other townships because we don't have the amount of projects that we need. Right. So it is a total nonsense activity. And so I think from that point of view, we really need to be conservative, to your point. And one of the things that Andrew said that I was interested in was that none of these have to be done until the end until 2029. So let's wait until
And he even
2029.
said slow roll the filing, right? To start the clock.
Yeah, because this is it is a lot of money for us to swallow, and we need some time to figure it out, right? We can't just say, all right, we're going to cut a big chunk.
Right, but you see, I hear what you're saying. I don't have the faith in government that you have. I don't think they're going to change their mind. This thing's been on the books for a while, but I hear what you're saying. You don't want to be the first one, but you got to put the money, you got to start putting the money aside. Because
100%.
the day's going to show up. We may not be on the board anymore, but somebody else is going to get stuck with it. And they're going to be looking at a $3 million bill. We got to be able to give them something to work with.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's where we have to make those decisions. And when you talk about like open space spending, we don't have, there's zero. Right now we're at a negative balance in terms of budget, right? We got to come up with that shortfall.
I'd like to point out something else too, with the Park and Rec Fund. We've gone over our budget for the past like 4 or 5 years. And it ranges anywhere from 20,000 to this year so far up to 40,000 that the general fund is funneling money over. So I pulled all the numbers today, and this is just for a good example for you. And everything that we spent for Park and Rec for the trails, the maintenance, and the mowing's not included, like the contracted mowing.
That was not part of that.
Well, the contracted mowing that KMC does.
Roadside mowing?
Huh?
That's not roadside mowing, is it?
No. So all that came to $95,035 out of the Park and Rec Fund. So I'm sorry, so this is not contracted mowing. We're paying 95,000 for what? All your trails,
Doing
Still want it, yeah.
mowing the trails. For example, to date, the Ford Farm, we spent $6,643. The Franklin Preserve, $2,883, Mount Olivet, $1,661.50. And then you have your ball fields, which you have to do, which is $10,634.50, the turf care, $10,000. So that's $32,669. So all other maintenance out of the park and rec, like the mulching, any other kind of maintenance that happens, that comes down to $62,365.30. So then when you look at what your tax mill brings in, which brings in 8% of what they pay, it's $59,744.35. So we're way short.
Wait, $3,000, no?
Well, technically you're $30,000 behind.
So then we should raise the.
In
the
three
tax
quarters,
in
in
the-
three quarters. Let's see,
Mhm.
we even go further behind, right?
So we
Yeah.
need to raise the tax on the Parks and Recreation, right?
No. Yeah, I mean, and it's been steadily trending, pricing's going up. Luckily, we found a cheaper mowing company just for the mowing contract, because that's what blew the budget last year was the JPS landscaping. So now we have this company, which falls within our budget. So we've spent so much time and effort getting the park back where it needs to be. And we just have to think about it. I mean, I agree something has to get cut back, but I am not in favor of just ripping all that money away from them. We got it.
No.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's saying that, right? So I understand maybe it's 10 or 20, whatever, but the park is beautiful. And I don't want to put any of that in jeopardy.
But you're talking about Crossing Park.
Yes, that's what I was talking
Yeah,
about.
but there's other fees that she just.
Well, that's what we have to look at.
Yeah, right.
We
You have to go down the
gotta
list.
get into that, but if we can protect Crossing Park
Yeah.
I mean, we have to look at everything. We have to look at everything, but I want kids to be able to go and play on the tot lot or play baseball or
Yeah.
soccer. So we gotta figure it out.
Roadside mowing budgeted 70,000. 2024, 2023, 40,000. 19 in 2022, 23,000 was the actual. Why is it going up?
Yeah, I mean,
50%. That's $40,000 we could probably save
Cost of
someone.
fuel, cost of fuel.
Yeah, binomics.
Yeah. Well, because Jim wants that, and I guess Jeff and Jim brought it, and he wants to do elevated cuts, 2 cuts a year at 14,000, super elevated cut, 3,600 per day, 3 to 4 cuts a year, which would be 14,400, roadside mowing, 6,900 per cut, and he wants to do 5 of them a year. And then site distance, $7,000 for the year. So if you add all that up, that's where that figure comes into. That's also a safety issue too, so you can.
Do we fit it out?
Yes,
Is that the lowest bid?
yes.
70,000 versus, okay.
Now, keep in mind, we do this based on the weather and the growth and safety and, if we get a drought during the summertime, it may go down, but we don't know.
Wow.
You don't want to put safety. I know I keep on being such a naysayer, but you can't put safety at risk too. I don't really feel we're extravagant in that.
No, I'm just saying, when I see a number that was 23,000 in 2022 going to 70.
Oh, I hear you.
I mean, were we not safe in 2022? Or has inflation kicked in that much? If it's that much, or were they giving us more than we really need to meet the minimum standards of safety?
Yeah, so so if you look back, all this other stuff, the elevated cut, the super elevated cut, and the site distance, was it included in this one line item? So in the budget now, and QuickBooks, when an invoice comes in for these individual things, I'll take it out of this line item and then put it in its category, so you guys get the fuller picture of exactly. It's going to be captured properly now.
So it hasn't gone up that much. It's just.
It's not apples to apples comparison you're looking at.
Right, it hasn't gone up that much. It's just being drawn out from elsewhere, from the other mowing.
Should we have a public discussion meeting, since it's almost 10 o'clock, on the subject in of itself?
Then we're gonna do it in, say it. We're gonna do it in November.
So we're gonna do this in the November workshop meeting, and then we're gonna have another discussion at the November Board of Supervisors meeting.
Okay, workshop.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's all right. But yeah, I mean, I think and I think the point of this is we're gonna have to dig in a little bit deeper than we have in the past, and just maybe go line by line, because I think, to your point, Stefan, like there's a lot of items in here where we over budget and we never spend it, right? And so I know we're talking about mowing, but we over budget snow plowing by $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's $100,000 that could go
But goes somewhere else.
Goes to the road program.
The 100,000, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. It ends up in the road program the next year.
So we still spend it. It's not like we're saving it. And yeah, I'm not gonna say the other thing.
So, but yeah, and then I think the other piece is we've been incredibly aggressive with the road program for the last 10 years. I mean, like 2 to 3 times we spend 2 to 3 times more than our neighbors do every year on the roads.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about getting in line with what we're doing with the neighbor, you know, this might be a good time to start relooking at how much we spend on our roads. Because, and I want to, you know, just to put a feather in the board's caps over the last 10 years, you know, and then we've had 3 different boards in that time, did a really nice job getting the road system up to a stable point. So we may only need to do 1 or 2 a year instead of 3 or 4. So that's something that I think we can really take a look at and say, okay, you know, because to Donna's point, we have maintenance issues, ongoing maintenance issues, right? When we have things like the park, this is something that the residents actively use. And we don't want to take that away from them. And if we don't need to spend their money on roads, we can spend them money on other things. So again, my point being is we have to go line by line and really understand what it is we're spending.
Just to let the board know, the robotics project is complete for the survey.
The road survey.
The road survey, the board authorized that earlier this year.
Yeah.
So robotics will present that like 15, 20 minutes at the workshop. So we'll have a
So
great
results
picture.
would be
Good timing. Yeah.
yeah, perfect.
Yeah, and I think as you were saying, we should be proud of what we've done with the roads, and I think that's the one thing that's working in our favor, that I don't think the roads will suffer. I think it is like the timing's right for us to pull back a little bit because they are at a good place. We're not saying cut it completely, but pull back, and we may have to direct some of that money somewhere else. And I think we're fortunate that a lot of good work's been done over the years, that it should work for us.
Yep, for sure.
We'll let it come like PennDOT roads.
Okay, we got some more stuff. Oh, so any more talk? I don't want any more discussion on the budget.
Well, yeah, just so if we have ideas like Steph, I might have a couple, I'll send you some bullet points.
Yeah, it's in here.
Okay.
Great.
Can I just send it to you? Or do I have to send it to everybody or?
I was gonna just send, yeah, to
Send
me.
it to Melissa.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just compile it. All right, solicitors report.
Was it me? Oh, copy and sauce too. All right, so what we're doing here. Oh, okay, good money going, more expensive money, okay. So I'm just gonna make the motion. This has to do with Chester County Treasury Office. Maybe I'll let Melissa just give us a little introduction. Oh, no, it's you. Okay.
You.
I'm still here. So, and Melissa will chime in when she thinks it's appropriate. It's important to give the board a little bit of a history, and I don't want to prolong this any longer than I have to, but it's important because it's a contract with the county. So you received evidently on October 3rd an edict from the county that said we're increasing our fees to act as your deputy tax collector. We're increasing bills to $4 a bill and reminders to $2. And you received that notice via letter. We must have a signed agreement and resolution along with any other required documentation in our office no later than November 1st, 2023. I tell you that because I'm going to encourage you to do something that's a little bit atypical for this board, who always takes deep dives into everything, appropriately so. So we were working with the treasurer's office and with Ms. Zonino there, who is responsible for this initiative. And we have been asking, what do you want in the contract? Let me see the contract. Do you want a resolution? What's language is supposed to be in the resolution? Monday reached out for Ms. Zonino again, or the treasurer's office again, and they've been fabulous. And she said, we've just sent them. So your staff received them. Melissa received them today, I'm led to believe. Right, when she got here. So she brought them over to me. So I had a little time this evening to look through them when I wasn't engaged in something else. And I've read them. The contract is fine. The resolution is fine. I have 2 comments I want to make to the board. The contract does not have a contact person for the township filled in on page 6 of 8 of the contract. So I'm going to encourage you to pick somebody and write that in. We need to decide it now, but it could be Ms. Hollis, it could be Jeff, it could be whomever. Could be Ms. Ortega. And in the resolution, it refers to a signed affidavit by the Franklin Township tax collector deputizing Treasurer Mizano to serve as the deputy tax collector for the board. I spoke to Jeff when I read this and I said, I'm not aware. I said, who's your tax collector? Do we have an affidavit? The answer is probably, but we'll get it renewed. So I'm going to encourage the board to approve the resolution. I'm going to encourage the board to approve the agreement for property tax collection services. We've baked some language into the resolution, which allows you to meet your November 1st deadline, because we don't want to lose. I can't imagine they would do that to a township on November 2nd, but yeah, right. Well, it's your revenue stream, so I don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. But the motion we've crafted kind of says, yeah, you're going to approve it, but only based upon your solicitor's review and the appropriate language of the resolution. So it'll give us an opportunity to do something if we need to. I don't think we will. It looks fine with me. I've reviewed these before. I don't have one to compare it to. I'll also note that there's a $30-day termination provision of this agreement. So if for some reason there's something we'd like to change, or we find that there's a clause in here that was snuck in, and I'm not suggesting that there was or is. We have, it's not a particularly long period of time, although the contract is for 2 years. So I'm going to encourage you to approve the motion tonight based upon what I've said. I'm sorry I've taken a little bit too long on it, but it's important and we're being asked to do it quickly. So.
Can I ask, since it's going to $4, what was it?
Exactly.
Yeah, do you know what it was?
It's the fee for the.
No, what was it previously?
Oh, I have no idea.
Exactly. I looked at the document, you're gonna have everything.
Yeah, we could.
I tried to get back a little bit, which the fee was before.
How does $4 compare to Birkenheimer or whatever, or we do not like their service?
No, this is Chester.
But Burke used to collect for us.
Oh, really?
I can't answer that question. I don't know.
The motion? Or do we have?
Guy, can we rescind for any reason in the 30-day period?
Yes.
Okay, good. Maybe we can.
Discussion, if we need more discussion. So I would like to make a motion that the board approve the Chester County Treasury's agreement in the form acceptance to our solicitor to increase the price to collect taxes on behalf of the township and any necessary resolution. An increase to $4 for each tax bill with a cost of $2 per reminder note. Have a second for that? Okay, any more discussion? I know we have a question about what we used to pay. And Jim, you have a question about what did Berkheimer charge us?
Yeah, we'll find out. We can find out. Yeah, hopefully we can. Let's try to research that and we'll have answers.
And does this new fee get paid for by each resident? So they get paid to the township per person, right? To per tax bill.
Per bill, yeah.
Per bill.
And then per reminder.
Yeah.
$2 per.
So there's how many taxpayers in the township? Maybe 25, 20,
How many properties? I suspect.
Yeah, so we got 1,000 something, 1,500.
1,500 times 4 is 6,000. I guess my question is, if we're happy with Chester County doing our tax collecting, is it really worth if we save 50 cents? I know we're looking for money somewhere.
Yeah, for $1,000.
My concern is the deadline,
Yeah.
and the letter that was sent is italicized in bold language. I gotta have it by November 1st. Anything received after all uppercase bold. November 1st will not all uppercase bold, so will not be considered. So I'm concerned about. I'm concerned that you won't be taken care of next year. So
Okay.
Yeah.
It's fine.
All right, so, any other discussion? I'm sorry. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes 4-0. Bold italicized.
Yeah.
And then we'll work on it afterwards. The next thing on the agenda is the septic ordinance. Now, you'll recall that we discussed this at your September meeting, and the outline I'd like to give the board and members of the public is that it's a fairly conventional sewer ordinance. It's got a definitional section. We went through the definitions before. It basically requires a property owner who can access public sewer to tie into public sewer and to provide permissive tie-ins under certain circumstances. If you do tie into the public sewer system, you're going to have to abandon any system that's on your property. The ordinance provides for a connection fee and consequences for failure to make that connection. And it contains a violations and penalties provision, which will occasion, if convicted, a summary conviction and a fine. It provides for the sewer rents, which the Board of Supervisors will adopt by resolution annually. It prohibits certain discharges and has fees and lien consequences for delinquencies. So there was at the last meeting 2 changes that were suggested, one by Stan and I think one by Donna. We made those changes. One said put it in and between a particular word, and the other one was a selection of a 30-day period. So those changes were made. And so I would encourage, we have proof of publication here with Ms. Hollis. So we've done everything we need to do to present this to the board for consideration and potential adoption.
So read the motion. Okay. Oh, let me glasses first. So I would like to make a motion that the board approve ordinance number 2023-03, an ordinance of Franklin Township, Chester County, Pennsylvania, amending the code of Franklin Township by adding a new part 2 of chapter 18 pertaining to sewer use. Can I have a second for that, please?
I'll second it.
Okay, Dave. Okay, any discussion? Okay, so let's vote. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries 4-0.
And if I can have 30 more seconds off the agenda, it's not an action item, but we have been contacted by Comcast with respect to the franchise agreement. And that franchise agreement, in my view, has already automatically renewed because nobody terminated it within the termination period. However, Comcast, due to changes in technology and language that was used at one time that's no longer used, and new language they have, new technologies they have, that's not included in the old agreement. They want the township to sign a new agreement. I am looking through it to see if the changes they want made are simply the identification of technology. It's complicated, and in my view, the agreement that you have has automatically renewed. So we're safe. So I want to take some time to look through it. And I know I've been dealing with Melissa, and I've been dealing with it a little bit. I've been in contact with the Comcast representative, and that's gonna move along at its own pace.
This is not related to Crown Castle cell tower, is it?
No, this has to do with the cable that the fiber that your the constituents used.
Except for our road.
Except for.
I'll try to figure that out.
Maybe we could add that in. Let's put that in a small
All
font.
right.
So that's something that we'll be discussing at the next township meeting, or is this something?
Yeah,
that we're thinking-
there's 2 things to get geared up for your next meeting. That particular issue
Okay.
and general code, because I have Melissa Reinstatter working on that, And I think she's wrapped it up. So I will try to move that forward, and as well as this franchise agreement. That's correct.
Okay.
So those are some of the things that are percolating in the
I
back.
agree a budget. I agree a budget because you have to publish it, so.
So that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Guy.
Thanks.
Okay, so with that, we will move on to public comment. This public comment can include comments on anything attendees may want to share. Commenters must state their name and whether they are a township resident or a taxpayer of the township. Do we have any? We do.
It's probably a half hour past my bedtime already. My concern, and this is just me, I'm not representing the Franklin sportsman. In Franklin, the bike club was given permission to make a trail. And they did. And they worked hard and they made a trail conducive to bike riding. And the problem is it's not really conducive to anything else. You have a narrow trail that switchbacks and scrapes trees, goes around trees. It goes out and then it comes into a sensitive area that no one ever went in. And now that's all, trailed up. And then they go through a really nice hedgerow. I mean, there should be no trail in the hedgerow. It should be out in the field. The switchbacks should be taken out. BMX mountain biking and preserve to me don't even mix. I mean, Peacedale Preserve has beautiful trails, much wider, safer than Franklin, and bikes aren't allowed at all for a lot of reasons. It's safety, soil compaction, erosion, actual running over of animals like salamanders, snakes, foot traffic in a preserve makes sense to me. I know they've done a lot of work, and I know we're not going to solve anything now, but I just want to put it out there that those trails really should be made for everybody now. They're getting, I'd say 80% of the use isn't bikers anyway. If you sit there and watch, it's unfortunately mostly.
So I'm confused. You said you said that you just said that the trails were not good for anything but BMX.
Well,
bikes, and now you're telling me that it's walkers, and so it sounds like you just contradicted yourself. It sounds like a lot of people are.
Here's the main thing. What you have mostly in Franklin are dog walkers who don't want to walk in Crossing or where they'll be seen because their dogs are off leash.
Yeah.
So they're going sneaking through, they're going on the bike trail, which is narrow and winds. You've probably seen it. If horses, bikes, and everything's allowed, you have to redesign that trail. I mean, it's just not safe for all those uses. It's not. Parts where it goes around trees and corners. I mean, someone's going to take out some old lady's dog or something. But besides that, I just don't know what were the preserves for. I know they have to have access for people, but to me, they always have a wildlife connotation to them. And we're almost maximum disturbance of the wildlife where they put that. It's a shame. I mean, that's my opinion. And I would really tread softly in White Clay Crescent. That's a sensitive 29-acre parcel. If they ever get the private land to connect a trail, fine, you could have one thing where bikes could go through. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I wouldn't do it. If I own property, unless they do eminent domain, I don't think that's ever going to happen. But that's my opinion again. So that's just floating it out there because it looked like the trail making's already started in White Clay Crescent.
So I get the White Clay Crescent comment, and I've heard that from other folks too. But it's the other comment. I'm confused. So do you want us to make more trails, or do you want us not to have less trails?
It would result in more miles of trail or more feet of trail. What I would do is more of a perimeter trail.
So you think it should be designed differently
and not go through some of the sensitive areas.
Okay. Now that makes sense.
I mean, I'm not against having a trail. I think part of the thing of having a preserve is access. I think you can overdo it, like what's happened in Bamshire. I think there's too many in Bamshire. And from being here since 92 and being in most of the preserves a lot, the biodiversity's gone down. I mean, there's not as many animals. They don't tolerate a lot of traffic and people walking dogs, and they just don't. Turkeys. Bob and I were talking the other day about they used to nest in Bamshire. They really don't nest in there anymore. I think it's just too much traffic. That's just an opinion, but so that's all I have.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Any other public comment before we are ready? All right, thank you. So I make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting at 10:09 PM. Second. All right, thank you, Stefan. Any discussion? All right.
Public comment, not everybody. Yeah.
What, he's not on the,
We can
do it next.
I talk, oh, Jesus.
Do you want to spend 5 minutes with the
Yeah, all right.
We're here.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries